Hello and welcome to the Nash Tackle Off the Hook podcast. Just to make you aware, this podcast may contain some explicit/offensive language, and if that's not your thing, you don't have to listen, but I have given you a warning. I hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
You don't know the half of it, but anyway. I'm skating on the thinnest ice known to man.
He said, and they put a poison in the tank that just instantly kills them. He went and we'd run out of it, so we cut their heads off with shovels.
Suddenly, bang! The whole boat exploded.
Take your sort of 8-inch long piranha and imagine that at 4, 5, maybe 6 feet.
I said, I've revived your dead fish. F off, he said. You haven't.
That was just humongous. It was... I couldn't believe what I was looking at.
I'm just battling this fish out in the pond. I know it's a black man. I'm saying I'll never be a naughty boy again.
If you catch fish and you return them to the water, then you are my brother.
Graham Mabey, welcome to the Nash podcast. How the devil are you?
I am all good, thank you very much, Hassan. Yeah, pleasure to be up here.
Mate, thank you very much for coming down. What have you been up to recently?
Oh, what have I been up to recently? Well, last week we were over practicing in France for the upcoming World Championships. So I don't know if it's going to be probably going out after we've been over there. But yeah, we were over practicing with the team.
This is going to have happened, mate. I think
it would have happened,
when this comes out, we will know if you've retained the title or not. Completely down to you, obviously. And not
we will have retained the title, exactly. There you are. So, so we've been over there practicing. Went really well. Really good practice. Team looking sharp. Team looking hungry, which is good. Exciting times. That's what I've been up to sort of like very recently. Obviously just working, family life and stuff like that. A bit of bass fishing, Hassan. And
nice. I love a bit of lure chucking for bass, mate.
Exactly.
Brilliant.
Lots of prep work, to get ready to go over to France. There's a lot of stuff behind the scenes with that sort of thing that we need to get ready and get prepared for. Get all the equipment, So just getting ready, man, really. It's exciting.
Busy, mate, busy. Your remit, the things that you cover within the world of fishing, there's all sorts, mate. When we talked about the podcast, there's loads. Obviously, your work for the Angling Trust, your work with Team England as assistant manager, and also your subsequent fishing and the rod business. There's loads in terms of a spectrum of different experiences, different levels of involvement across the wide sort of angling industry. As a branch question, before we go into specifics in different areas, did you ever think that your sort of whole life would consist of fishing?
No. No, in a nutshell. I do actually, I have a very, very vivid memory actually of my dad, because I used to do well at school, and I got good grades and stuff like that, but I could never really sort of find my calling. I didn't know what I wanted to be. It's quite funny. I always remember my dad pulling me to one side. I must have been about 15, 16 years old, and having one of those fatherly chats with me, those sort of like, it's like, come on, son, let's have a little chat, And he's like, Graham, what do you want to be in life? Like you've got to have a goal, you've got to have an ambition. And I was just like, I don't know, Dad. I was like, I've got no idea. And he, I remember him looking me in the eyes and said, look, Graham, you can't just be a fisherman, right? And the thing that popped into my head was, why not? I was like, that's what I love.
You say that to him?
Well, no, I said it in my head because I probably got a clip around here. But no, in my head, I was sort of like, why not? That's the thing that I have got so much passion for in life is fishing. I loved it ever since I was born an angler, and I think a lot of your listeners will be able to associate with that. There's something internally in me that when I saw water as a kid, I was just drawn to it. Do you know what I mean? The fish fascinated me, the water fascinated, the outdoors fascinated me. And all I wanted to do was just be sort of like around fish and fishing. I didn't quite know how that was going to manifest itself.
Yeah.
But then, so I was fishing and growing up fishing around the sort of Southampton area, meeting loads of really cool anglers. I grew up in that age of I started fishing in 1986. So sort of by the time the early 90s came, I was sort of like in the heyday of carp angling coming through, and all the secret baits, secret edges, the hair rig being shown to us for the first time and stuff like this. It was a really exciting time to come through fishing. And then I went to work in the States, and I went over to America to work as an outdoor adventure instructor, teaching all sorts of really cool outdoor sports like caving, climbing, mountain biking, rafting, canoeing, all that sort of stuff. But it was all focused around personal development. So people going out and experiencing the outdoors to improve their own mental health and well-being and their own self-esteem, and sort of like working with youngsters and adults. When I came back, I was like, that is my calling, as an outdoor instructor. Really? Yeah, as a development tutor, as an outdoor instructor, I was like, I love it. I just love it. It fascinates me, the the whole sort of like mindset thing and people using the outdoors to better themselves and to reconnect and stuff. And I came back, started working in the UK, and then I linked the two together. And I think that was a very pivotal moment in sort of like me getting into the industry, as it were. I decided to take the leap of faith to actually connect the outdoor development work I was doing at the time as a tutor in the New Forest, leave that job and actually start my own organisation up, teaching personal development using fishing as the anchor. So we used to take groups fishing, teach them fishing, but at the same time sort of like work on how to sort of like communicate, how to build people's confidence, self-esteem, using angling as the tool, as it were. And then from then on, everything just fell into place, Hassan, you know. It's just funny how things happen like that in life, isn't it? You know, you just sort of like, you know, just things kept on falling in place, you know, doors kept opening. And I think a lot of people like listening to this podcast, I may have seen it come up, you know, a podcast with Mabey. It's like, who the hell is he? You know, like, and not a lot of people know what I've been doing or know about me. You know, I've always been sort of like in the back room, as it were, you know, sort of like in the shadows a little bit, but it's going to be, I'm really looking forward to this, to sitting down with you and having a chat about things.
You've done a lot, mate. You just have never been one person to really shout about it. I think every person that it's sort of, if you know, you know, you've seen it said so much with loads of different stuff, but there's loads of people who've spent time with you fishing or time with you in a work context, but you've never been really one to sort of toot your own horn. Whereas if you did, then there would be, I think, a massive wider sort of, I don't know, do you know what I mean? A wider sort of audience. You've never really done that, have you, mate?
No, I think when I did start my coaching organisation, like 4 Life Experiences, you know, I was 26 years old.
Yeah.
You know. I actually quit my job to start that. You know, we might go into that later on, but, you know, I actually handed in my resignation to allow me to start that organisation to get the funding. And I started that. And it was all about putting my passion and focus onto just doing the work, you know. And we were out, you know, we were out working, Christ, you know, like 7 days a week with like multiple groups a day when I had it with, you know, when Tom was working with me and stuff. But our focus was on the delivery. It was never on the marketing and promotion.
Okay.
And you see it quite a lot with, you know, if I did it again and with the way that the world is now, where people are much more into and aware of people's like mental health and well-being and stuff. If I did it again, people would probably pick up on what I was doing a lot more. But back then, you're talking about 15 years ago, Hassan, you know, it's a long time ago that I started doing it. It was always seen as like, oh, fishing coaching, you must be sitting down one-on-one on a seat box, teaching them to catch a fish. And I'm sort of like, no. It's, you know, it's not about that. You know, we're working with groups of people. We're working with, you know, trying to help them improve their, you know, their own mindfulness and their own well-being and stuff like that. And fishing is the tool that we're using to get to that, you know?
Yeah.
So we didn't really shout about it. But like you say, those people that knew us, knew about what we were doing. I hope there's some listeners. I'm sure there's some listeners out there that were kids that used to come through our like school projects and stuff. They're now listening to this, be like, oh, there's G, you know, like we used to go and we went on his courses, or some adults and stuff like that. And that feels, that fills me still with the same buzz, you know. Like I bumped into someone the other day that I used to coach when they were a kid. I didn't even recognise them, you know. They're about 6'4" now, and you know, like in their mid-20s, you know, maybe even later than that, you know. And they're like, "You're right, G, yeah, do you remember me?" And I was like, I sort of recognised, you know, like, oh yeah, well, came through one of the school programs with you. And I was like, I do, you know, like. And he's still fishing. He's got a young family now. Wicked. He was actually taking his kid, his own kid fishing. So to see that, you know, sort of like that gives me the buzz. But
that's, I think, from somebody who's worked in the industry, to be able to give back is a brilliant thing. To be able to sort of look at maybe influencing future generations and getting people into the sport, as well as benefiting them. We talked about on a social level, and you talked about a load of key terms which definitely are very topical in this modern day and age: mindset, mentality, sort of that whole mindfulness remit, which is such a buzz across everything nowadays. There's a lot more emphasis on it. But also, when I talked about you not screaming about things and sort of shouting about what you've done, that goes for your own carp fishing, which has always been, yes, I may have seen 1 or 2 captures or images, but in terms of what you've done, again, it's not a big social media presence to sort of outwardly broadcast it. You've just gone about fishing good venues, catching. You've had some ridiculous results, and we're going to talk about them. But that's all been, again, not really your thing to sort of boast about or chase endorsements or sponsorship or anything like that, has it?
No, not really. And I think it's, I don't think it comes naturally to me to be wanting to chase those sorts of things. I'm very lucky, you know. I do have some great sponsors and stuff. You know, I've got a wicked bait sponsor with NutriBaits now and stuff like that. You know, and you know, to be honest with you, like Nash as well has always looked after me, you know, because since Alan very first saw what I did with the coaching many, many years ago, you know, like he's been fantastic in supporting me personally and everything that I've done, you know. But yeah, no, I've never really sort of like, never really sort of chased that type of thing. Like the capture wise, I have gone and caught some good fish, you know, and I've caught them on my own terms as well. And I think that that's really quite important, like to actually catch them the way that I fish, which is quite often very short sessions, sort of like getting my head around the venue, figuring things out, and then getting the job done, if that makes sense. You know, going and catching them on my own terms. I've never been one to really like try and bore fish out, if that makes sense. I don't mean that in any disrespect, because everyone has their own fishing style, and I think that's something that we need to appreciate, is that everyone will have their own personal fishing style that suits their personality. And if you can tap into that, if you can find the way that you are personally most effective in anything in life, but you know, when it comes to fishing as well, if you can find the way that you are most effective, then you can work that into your fishing, and then you can become a much more effective angler. You know, some people have much more patience and be able to sit there for a couple of days on a baited spot waiting for the fish to come in, knowing that the fish are going to arrive. Other people like myself will be sort of like bouncing around trying to make something happen, or they can't sit still, you know, long enough and stuff.
Or there's people like me, bait boat to the snag.
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
Good angling.
Embrace the technology, Hassan. But
get the drone out, find him in the snags, bait boat to the snags.
There you are. That's it. Drop it on their heads.
Give it 10 minutes.
Job done. But no, but you know, I think that is the. Yeah, I think when we talk about fishing and captures and stuff like that, we were having a chat before we came on air, weren't we? It's all got to be sort of like personal relevance, the amount of time and effort that you put into it and stuff. And and I've definitely trodden in something in the last like 8 or 10 years.
Mate, it's ridiculous, mate. When we planned it, to be fair, I didn't know personally of all the things. I knew about a few captures, but I think the way that was really interesting, and I think, again, you've got some expertise when it comes to sort of the mental health, the mental approach thing. It is a definite buzzword in the carp world. You hear it from loads of different anglers, this concept of mindset, okay? You've had a load of results in a short period of time on venues with some incredible fish, and you put that all down to mindset. Obviously, you've got expertise in this area through the coaching, what you've done, and we're going to come on to all that later. Mindset, when I talk to other anglers about mindset, and again, I don't mean it in any disrespect, because it's everybody's own definition of the term, it very much is a case of sort of going the extra mile, whether that be time, whether that be going to the venue to bait up, whether that be going through stuff basically that other people aren't willing to do in order to put you in a position to catch that carp. That is generally how people have gone about sort of explaining or manifesting in a practical sense what this mindset to catch big carp is. For you, talk to me about this mindset, because like we're going to talk about, some of these captures are really quick. They're fish that don't come out a lot. They're really ridiculous results for the venues you're going on. And you've said to me that mindset and what exactly that looks like for you is the key sort of element to all those captures.
Yeah, I think there's a definite difference between mindset and mindfulness.
Yeah.
We'll come on to mindfulness later on. Mindfulness is much more health and well-being side. Mindset is much more sort of like being effective and efficient, you know, being in that mindset where you can perform. You know, you're an athlete, you know about getting into the right mindset to be able to perform, you know, and if you look at it in any walk of life, whether it's being successful in business, successful in sport, if it's, you know, being in that right mindset to be able to focus and be able to perform is important, you know. And there's lots of ways you can get into the right mindset, you know, like, we won't go too far down this, but like affirmations, you know, sort of like actual positive mental thinking and stuff about, you know, thinking things through before you go and try to achieve something, you know. Mood boards, you heard of mood boards, we put photos and images up and stuff of like what you want to achieve in life and stuff. And you can take it all into your fishing, you know, like having the right mindset that you will be successful when you go onto a water, that you've got a target that you want to achieve, and focusing your energy on that and coming up with the right plan, coming up with the right tactics, executing those properly, and having the confidence. I think confidence is so underrated, you know, having the confidence it's going to happen for you, you know, that's key, you know. And quite often a lot of captures, and it can't just be coincidence, you know, like you've already put them through your mind hundreds of times. You know, like you've thought about how you're going to catch them, where they're going to come from, what bait you're going to catch them on, what tactic you're going to catch them on. And when it happens, there's a kind of sort of like a deja vu over it sometimes, you know, where you're like, it's come together, it's all it's fallen together. But the reason it's fallen together, in my opinion, is that you've got the right mindset. You've gone and focused your attention, the detail, you've gone into every single detail to make sure that you have achieved your target, you know.
In your angle, give me some practical examples of that. You've had some great captures. Obviously, you can talk specifics about those, but this process, this getting in the right mindset and it actually happening, because let's face it, mate, I can go and I can think, I'm going to go and catch an unknown 50-pounder out of whatever. It ain't going to happen.
No,
if I
exactly.
think it enough, it might turn up if I go enough. But give me some practical examples in your life, your captures, where that mindset, how that's worked and how that's led to that capture.
Yeah, exactly. You know, we're not talking about just thinking things onto the end of the hook here. Do you know what I mean? But if I give you a prime example, one of the let me just move myself around here so I can. There you go. It's a bit better. I can get into the mic a bit better. One of the things that we used to teach was Kolb's learning cycle, which is understand, plan, do, review. Right. And what I try and do is I try and use that before I go and approach a venue or start figuring things out, and actually use that cycle within inside my fishing. So first off, seek to understand, and this could be a match that we're going into. It could be going and joining a new syndicate and stuff. But first off, it's really important to get that understanding clear in your mind about the fishery, what you're trying to achieve. It might be where the fish likes to come out from, other tactics other anglers are using, the type of lake bed, get as much understanding as you possibly can. That's the most important thing to do first. Get that clear in your mind, get it clear in your head. Then you can go around and you can put a plan in place. Once you've got that understanding, you can then plan, right? Obviously the planning part, that's where you decide and what swims you're going to work, how you're going to bait, what bait you're going to use, what rigs you're going to use, when you're going to be able to get down there and fish effectively. And then understand, plan, next one's do. So you go off and you put that plan into place. The important thing is that as you're going and doing the doing, you're doing the fishing, you come back and you review. Now that review might be done at the end of the session, might be done at the end of the season. It might be done halfway through. You see a fish bosh somewhere else, right? All of that is a process in thought whereby you're doing a review, a conscious review of your plan and how successful it is, right? If you use this theory, it then comes back round to your understanding. Your understanding increases, right? So your understanding has increased about what you're trying to achieve. So then you go round the cycle again. The planning stage might become more detailed, might become more, might change completely, but your plan will tweak and change. You'll then go and do it. And then afterwards you review it. I know you had Wayne and Ryan on, and they were talking about their match fishing success. And I've done quite a lot of match fishing in the past with Tom and with other partners and stuff, mainly with Tom Oliver. And that was the process we used to use as well. We didn't have to talk to each other and say, right, now let's sit down and come up with a plan. But you just naturally go through that cycle. And I think when it comes to mindset, that is one of the ways that I approach things, is that I just put things down into that process where I'm trying to get as much understanding as I can. Then I come up with the plan that I'm going to go and implement. And obviously that plan I'm running through in my head whilst I'm at work, that, whilst I'm driving down to the lake, because I've got that understanding of that plan, I'm mentally working that through in my head. And then I'll go and execute it with the doing. And then I'll review it either driving home or halfway through the session. Maybe the weather's changed and I'm like, hang on a minute, this wasn't in the plan. Yeah. I wasn't expecting it to get roasting hot today. Let's sit back and review this. Hang on, are the fish going to be feeding on that spot that I thought they would be? Or are they going to be moving up onto the plateaus? Okay, it's getting hot. We're getting towards midday. The fish have backed off because an angler's come down the bank there. My understanding of what's going on has changed. Let's come up with a new plan. Right, the new plan, up sticks, move down there onto the plateau, put the baits out before they arrive. Just go and do it, yeah? So it's just little things like that again, have come from a background of being a development shooter. We use, and that Kolb learning cycle, you can look it up, it's Kolb's experiential learning cycle. I think Kolb actually uses words a bit more complicated than understand, plan, do, review, but it's the same process, it's the same process. And you can use it in anything in life, man. You can use it in, going and getting a new job, getting a girlfriend, getting a promotion, anything, it's a learning cycle that we go through. And I just sort of adapt to that and a few other things as well, such as that positive mindset, you know, affirmations and things like that to try.
So
and
what do you do? This affirmations, I completely get the learning cycle. Got that. I can see that. I'll pretty much do that in a session, maybe not too much before, because I'm moving venues and I don't necessarily get the time to gather as much intel. But I get that. When you're talking about affirmations, positive thinking and things like that, because there's definitely, you see it, and loads of people would have seen it on their syndicates. You get people that it comes across as inherently lucky. They'll come out, they'll catch a big one, they'll catch the big one, first fish, or they'll drop on, they'll catch loads, or whatever it is. And you think, how can he consistently do that time and time again everywhere? And then I've had people talk about knowing they're going to get the bite or knowing they're going to catch the big one, like well before. And there's been people talk it on with a bit of like tongue in cheek, but there's people that I've seen have gone, I'm catching it tonight, and it happens.
It happens time and time again, doesn't it? You know, it happens time and time again that you're like, it's happening tonight. I'm having this fish, you know, and then lo and behold, the rod goes off, and it's like you never guess what happened, you know. And that can't be coincidence. Like, it just can't be coincidence, you know. Like it's. I'm not saying there's anything like supernatural out there that's making these so you can just think the fish onto the hook, but it's having that confidence. It's like confidence, but it's like that next step in confidence, isn't it? It's like, you know, you're so sure in your mind that it's going to happen. Everything is locked in, everything as it should be. Everything is as you've pictured it hundreds of times in your head that this is going to happen. Maybe not in the finite detail, but you just know that it's going to come good and it's going to happen. And then it does, you know, it's having that. It's positive. It's like positive thinking. It's keeping yourself positive and in a positive mental state rather than thinking of the negatives all the time. And what you find is that your mind will pick up on what state you're in. If you're always thinking negative thoughts, then you'll be drawn to negative energy. If you're thinking positive thoughts, you get drawn towards positive energy. It's been proven that actually the way the mind works is that the mind can't differentiate between actual what is happening reality-wise and what your mind is playing through inside its mind, if that makes sense. So an example, I was listening to a podcast the other day. They had learning a piano for the first time. And they actually had people sitting in front of a piano, learning to play the piano with the keyboard, right? Mm. They're the same demographic of people that were also there, and they were just watching the instructions, but they didn't have a keyboard. So they were learning the music without the keyboard. They were learning it in their minds. At the end of the period, I think it was like 2 weeks or something, the people that didn't have the keyboard could play the keyboard as well as the people with the keyboard because they were playing those lessons through in their mind, if that makes sense. And I think that I think there's a lot to be said about staying positive and confident and 9 times out of 10, it does come good. You know, it does come good. You've just got that positive energy that's flowing through you, you know. People pick up on positive energy as well. People more, if you're a positive person, you've got positive energy flowing through you, doors open, positive things happen for you because people pick up on that positive energy and they might be more willing to sort of like share knowledge with you or something like that, you know, like, it's always funny, isn't it, that some people are like, I just happened to bump into so-and-so, you know, and he gave me this information that was really helpful and led to this capture or led to me getting a ticket to somewhere or something. And then when you sit back and you think, well, actually, how did that happen? It's because when he came into your swim, you were really positive. You were really like nice. You offered him a cup of tea. You know, you got chatting to him. You know, you were friendly, warm, open with him. You were positive. And where's that led to? It's led down to you forming this friendship and him being positive back to you and being, you know, if you were negative to them when they walked in, then obviously negative things are going to come off the back of that, and they wouldn't have shared anything, or, you know, it has negative repercussions. So I think that with that regards to the mindset, it's being positive, being focused, being confident, and actually just understanding, planning in your head, and just getting it dialed in that, you know, like what you're doing is going to be successful. You know?
But on your level, this is not sacking off the missus and kids for 3 weeks, sitting in a swim and just waiting for it to happen. That's not how your angling looks at all. And it never really has been, has it? It's short bursts. And every time, and as I said, we will go through the chapters and the captures. Every time you said, whilst we were planning this, every time that you've had a result, it hasn't been an extended period of time. It's been relatively short, but there's been that feeling, which you can can't quantify, where you think, right, it's definitely going to happen.
Yeah, and I think, I wouldn't say every time, but a lot of times I'll be sat there like confident it's going to happen. Yeah, like I'm doing it right. Yeah,
right.
This is going to come good. Yeah. And again, I think that comes from that whole, like that, whether it's the understand, plan, do, review, or just being a confidence thing, or just being in that right mindset. That I'm there and it's gonna come good. That this is gonna happen. I've had it before with, like when I'm trying to think of some of the ones, like when I went down to Boat Pool, went back down there. I was lucky enough to get a guestie back down there, and I knew I was going down there for about 3 or 4 weeks, I think it was. And in my head, I just knew that I needed to be in the inside gate and the big common was due. Yeah. And I was speaking to a friend of mine. And again, that's that understanding. I was speaking to my friend. He's like, hasn't been out for a long time. And I was like, right, I know that fish likes this area. I know it likes it on this spot, or this certain area of the lake. I know what it's been caught on and captured. So I'm starting in my head. I'm starting to plan around, how am I most effectively going to make use of my 24 hours in that time? I need to be there. I need to be in this swim. It's going to come out from this spot. It's just feeling good. Do you know what I mean? And I'm playing it through how I'm going to fish this swim in my head. And lo and behold, I got there. The fish were all coming out down the other end of the lake. And I was very tempted to go down the other end of the lake, but I was like, no. I was like, I'm here because I want that fish. That fish is due. I went into the swim, cast out, tactic that I'd been playing through in my mind. I thought was going to be successful. And lo and behold, Rob went off within 2 hours, and there was a 2-tone common in the bottom of the net. Couldn't believe it. Could not believe it. It was as if it had been, as if I played it through loads of times in my mind, sort of thing. But it's just having that super confidence. I think I'm sure if you sat people down on this couch, or when you have sat people down, the most successful anglers. I'm not saying I'm one of the most successful anglers by a long shot, but if you talk to really successful anglers, having that confidence, having that mindset that it's going to happen, like I'm doing this right, and it might be they make little tweaks and stuff like that, but they've got that super confidence it's going to come good. And it goes the other way as well. I will say that, I've taken tickets before where I've mentally, I've not been able to get into it. Like either the style of fishing hasn't suited what I do, or like just my mindset's not been in the right place. Work life has been too stressful, and I'm turning up at the lake and stuff, and I'm all over the place. Sort of like, I just can't get into it. But I think when you can get yourself into that state of performance, when you can get yourself into that mental state of performance, when you're ready to perform. And as I say, you're a sports person yourself. You know about how important that is. People that watch sport on TV, they see people getting themselves into that mental clarity, that mental state, ready to perform. I think that if you can learn to take that into your fishing, it can actually make you much more successful.
It's definitely the distinguishing factor that separates people on a sporting level, isn't it? Those who are mentally able to sort of work at maybe that higher level, whatever frequency, confidence, whatever you want, however you want to deem it. There's people who mentally, the difference is that mentality and how they go onto it, whatever sport it may be, tennis, football, whatever. Those elite athletes mentally are on a completely different level. That, though, boat pool, the example of that common, I get the plan. I completely get all that plan, and I completely see, and I've done it, where you think about things, you look at the weather, you look at what's coming in, and you've got a vision in your mind. But to have the confidence then to go there, see that there's fish being caught or boshing the other side, and then stick to your original plan and go in that swim and fish the way that you said you were going to fish. That's probably something that I'm thinking in my essence I may not have done, knowing that fish are coming out the other end. I might have gone just for a bite because I love a bite, but that is that plan that you've stuck to, and clearly it's paid off for you. Tactically, what was the tactic? Anything?
Tactic on that one was actually using bags.
Solid bags.
Yeah, solid bags, yeah. It's actually funny on Boat Pool because, again, it was one of those things that it's that understanding. When I went on there, everyone was like, don't use pellet, right, because of the catfish and the bream. Yeah, catfish and the bream inside there. You get played. Now, I love fishing pellet. It's one of pellet and bags is, my go-to. I grew up fishing Broadlands back in the day where it was invented, sort of like we were pioneering Richworth PVA bags and, and little handy packs of boilies and stuff back in the day. And anyway, I turned up on Boat Pool and I was like, to start with, I wasn't using it. And then I think I had 2 fish out, I think it was, in about four 4 overnighters or 5 overnighters. And I was like, you know what, I'm just going to try this. You know, like, why am I changing? Again, it was that review thing. I was like, hang on, this isn't, I'm getting the same results as everyone else here. I don't want to have the same results as everyone else. I want to figure this out so that I get better results than everyone else, or I want to do this quicker, you know. So I thought, I'm going to try bags. I was like, if I get breamed out on it, I get breamed out on it, you know. So I went over to fishing solids. I went over to fishing solids on nice spots out there. The way that I tend to fish when I'm doing my quick overnighters is I will identify in a lake 2 swims, maybe 3 swims, and learn those swims so that when I do turn up for my quick sessions, I don't have to lead, I don't have to make much disturbance. I find that for me personally, that's the way that I fish successfully, and I've done it for about the last 8 to 10 years now, I think, that I will try and get on one of 3 swims in a lake.
How do you pick those swims?
Normally, well, it depends what features they've got inside them, how busy they are with other anglers as well.
Do you go away from the crowd?
On some lakes I have. Yeah, there was a lake over in Chichester that we got walked around at the start when we joined it. And there was a swim in the southwest corner that was very weedy, and it wasn't the most comfortable swim. And when we walked in there with the bailiff, you know, he said, oh, this one here, the fish love getting in here during the daytime, but they tend to push out at night time. It's not really a nighttime bite swim. And I clocked that straight away. I was like, right, southwest corner, weed, like the fish getting here during the day. People obviously hadn't been fishing it. I was like, yeah, this is a bit of me. This is, you know, like I can make this happen in this corner. And the same thing down the very other end. There was this little bay with a little shallow plateau on it. And again, quite an uncomfortable swim. Obviously wasn't one that you could sort of like, that a lot of people have been fishing, but it just screams like, yeah, you could get something going in here. People couldn't really see what you were doing. Yeah, so those were my 2 target swims, you know, and if the weather was right and if the fish were looking like they'd get in there, I'd be baiting them and I'd be fishing those 2 spots there. Actually, I had another one that was out in the middle of the lake. That was my sort of my go-to. Yeah, if the weather wasn't looking quite prime, I'd sort of like fish long on some spots in the middle of the lake that I caught some fish from as well. But yeah, once I got those spots going away from the crowds, then that brought the result that I wanted from that lake in the first year. I had my target fish out of there, yeah, and a lot of others. But yeah, other ones, like when I had Dave the dog, you know, you met Dave the dog. He was a legend, wasn't he?
He was a unit.
He
Dave
was.
I'll never forget, like, the first time he folded himself out of your van, and you've got a big old van. I was like, he's a big old boy.
He is, yeah. Well, I actually bought an estate car and he wouldn't fit in the back of it. That's how big he was.
How big was he?
He was 14 stone. Yeah, 14 stone English Mastiff. But the gentlest giant you could ever wish for, the best carp dog ever, you know, like he was awesome. I'm sure a few of the listeners would have had the privilege of bumping into Dave when he was about. But yeah, so obviously when I had Dave, there were certain swims that I couldn't fish, you know, ones with big steps in and stuff like that. Or so sometimes that, even little things like that dictated like where I could go and fish, you know, like what swims I'd be looking into. It might be away from the crowds, you know, sort of like me and Dave tuck ourselves in a little corner or something. But I think once you learn to swim, I think that's where not people go wrong, but sometimes people put too much emphasis on it, is that to me, it's more important for me to know that swim and be able to fish that swim effectively than it is to chase the fish. I think a lot of, like, don't get me wrong, watercraft, I grew up in a time when watercraft is obviously key, being able to find fish and fish for the fish, right? Being able, you know, I don't particularly like all these apps where you book a peg 4 months in advance, you know, like I prefer to use traditional watercraft to find my fish. When it comes to swims, quite often people find the fish and then they need to find a spot to fish on the fish. And I quite often see it that actually that has a negative impact on their fishing, because they turn up, the fish are clearly in a corner or in a swim. First thing they do is they get their leading rods out, they get their spom rods out, they go and lead around all over them, they go and spom on top of them and stuff, and they spook the fish.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things I've always taught when I've been teaching through my fishing coaching is like, you can have fish in front of you, but if a fish is spooked, if a fish is scared, it will still be there, but it won't feed. Because if we're scared, we don't want to feed. If an animal is scared, it won't feed. It will still be there physically, but it won't be feeding. And I think that is quite key to my fishing. I try and get into a peg, get myself fishing in areas I know the fish will come and visit that night or have been visiting, or that I can establish something inside it, or that I know that, yeah, I've got that feeling they're going to come in and they will visit that overnight.
So you wouldn't then turn up to a venue, fish directly on the fish. You would rather target whatever areas you already know in the hope or in the plan that they will then come on to those spots and you're already fishing effectively.
It's all relative, isn't it? And that's what you've got to work out on the day, isn't it? Yeah. Like, I could turn up to a venue I've got no experience of before in my life, like Horseshoe was one, like I'm not going to go in there and be like, oh yeah, this, I'm going to rock up and put them on this spot and then, wait for them. Or I know they're going to turn up, But yeah, 9 times out of 10, if I'm on a water, I will try and find some swims that I'm like, that's got some nice features into it. That looks like they're visiting it. I can get in here after work. I can get my rods on that. I can fish that effectively and I can make something happen and work it, whether it's a quick space of time or whether it's like a bit of a baiting campaign or something like that going on as well. But yeah, it's just finding those patrol routes, isn't it, Hassan? I think, like rather than people sometimes see fish and they're just like, there's fish, get them, like that mentality of like,
I think that's key, mate. I can only reference, I was down the other week at Linear, and Linear is, everybody knows, incredible day ticket complex, ridiculously busy. There was people going into swims, clearly on fish, and doing exactly what you just said, thrashing it. And the fish didn't really go that far. They might have ducked into a weed bed, but they were pranged.
Yeah.
And they were sat up in the water, and even on zigs, they weren't doing anything. But knowing that you're not going to get into, let's say, the point on St. John's or swims that we know where spots are, let's say, because they've been well publicised or whatever, the Corda swim where you're fishing the underwater spot, you're going to, 9 times out of 10, get nowhere near that swim because there's going to be somebody in it. But being able to make the most out of a swim where you do end up is the difference between maybe catching a few on an overnighter and then catching absolutely nothing for a few days, isn't it?
And again, like I keep going back to like understand, plan, do, review. Like when you get into a peg and stuff, try and understand your peg first. Take a while to actually like settle yourself, right? I always try and setting yourself, but like turn up at a lake and just take a couple of minutes, just sort of like chill yourself down, get into the vibe of the fishery. Do you know what I mean? Like take it all in and then try and figure out like, how does it feel, this swim? Like, is this swim feeling good that it's going to work and respond to being forced with a bit of bait, Am I going to be able to rev this up, in the time span that I've got, quick overnight? If you've got 3 nights or something, you might be like, yeah, you know what? I reckon I can, the weather's looking prime for this. The pressure's looking good. There's not many, I've got a lot of space here and stuff. I reckon I can get something going here. I'm going to, but just take that time to sort of set it up and just look at the facts. How long are you going to be there? Are there fish in front of you at the moment? Do you think large groups of fish are going to come over this spot? Do you think it's a spot that you're going to have 1 or 2 fish just drifting over that night? Is it a little snag that down in the margins that, you can pick one up on a little, single nut under the tree that you think they're going to come and sit in as a shelter away from all the impact that's going on out in the middle of the lake, So once you start actually piecing the jigsaw together, that's what I love about fishing. Whatever type of fishing you do, it's a jigsaw, isn't it, Hassan? Like it's a puzzle. We spoke a bit about fly fishing, and about how, fly fishing, you're trying to identify like the depth, the colour, the fly, and once you piece it together, it actually can become quite easy. Whereas if you don't try and solve the puzzle, it can be very difficult. I think every time you go into that swim, it's just trying to have that puzzle solved as best you can, or have your pieces laid out as best you can so you can see them all, and then start putting that puzzle together. And we do that on the international stage. I try and do it in my personal fishing. When we used to go and fish competitions as a pair, of me and Tom, we do the same thing. And sometimes it's out the box thinking. Sometimes you're doing something that's like,
what you done? Give me some out the box. I like out the box. What we got?
Oh, out the box. We had, well, yes, we had one. Me and Tom were fishing a match up at Sandhurst, I think it was. Yeah, it was on Sandhurst. Yeah, charity match, Carping for Cancer one that we used to do most years, and it was really hot, and they don't allow zigs. You can't float a fish in there. And it was clear, you could see, it was quite busy where it was a charity match, there's a lot of people around. It's clear that the carp are moving around up in the water. And you couldn't really fish for them. That's a safe spot, isn't it? They come up in the water, that's a safe spot. Also in Sandhurst, as you probably know, you've got quite a few tench and you've got quite a few bream inside there. Now, we were fishing away, we'd fished, it was a 48-hour match, we fished for about 20 hours. It was on the Saturday afternoon, I think it was. And it wasn't happening. It wasn't happening around the lake, And the peg draw, I don't know if we came last out the hat or we came out fairly low in the draw. Do you know what I mean? It was funny. We were in a peg that I felt quite confident in, but we came out well low, well low in the draw. But when we got in there, I was like, you know what, this is all right. You know, this is down. Yeah, this could do a few fish. But anyway, when you're doing matches, your partner, the person you're fishing with, your match partner is really important. Yeah, and I can't even highlight how important that is. You've just got that connection with them. You know, you just work. You know, you work as a team. And I just looked at T and I was like, it's not happening, T, is it? He's like, nah. I was like, we need to make some changes. He's like, yeah, what are we going to do? And I was like, right, how about we need to get the other fish feeding? I said, if we can draw those tension, those bream in to feed, those carp that swim around the top, they'll be drawn into those fish feeding. There's no point fishing all these carp baits on the bottom when the carp aren't feeding. They're not coming down onto those spots because there's nothing drawing them down. They're just up in the water having a lovely time. So I was like, let's get the bream and the tench feeding. If we get the bream and tench feeding, that's going to cloud the water. That'll bring the carp. The carp are inquisitive. They're going to come in and drop in and visit our spots. So he's like, yeah. So we wound him. It's the middle of the match, right? Wound him. Went up to the local shop, bought a shed load of sweet corn. Went to local tackle shop, bought loads of goo. Can't remember what one it was, but like pineapple goo or something like that. Something that was like yeah, we're thinking, yeah, the bream go love this. We gotta get tench going on this. And yeah, came back, same spot, just put a load of this out, this mix. Like people must have thought we were crazy, so like spotting that out. And we sat there, and again, it's that confidence. Like we sat back, and I knew it was going to come good. You know, I was just like, this is gonna work a treat. You know, when you're just like, yeah, this is going to come good. This is a plan. This is good. And it did. That evening, started getting the tench rolling over the spot. First tench, I think we had 2 tench. Then we had a bream, all in the space of about 2 hours. Yeah. And then the rod rattled off and it was a carp. And then we had another 2 bream. Then the rod rattled off, it was a carp. And I think we had 3 carp, I think it was. And that was enough to win the match. It was fishing, like I say, it was fishing really hard. But yeah, we you know, and again, it's just thinking outside the box, you know. It's like we could have sat there on our carp baits on the bottom, not trying to catch the tension, the bream, but it was like, no, we need something to stimulate these carp into feeding, and that's exactly what it did. Just getting those other species feeding on the spot did it. So that's that did it.
Yeah, it's an interest. Yeah, people probably don't give it enough focus in terms of like mentally and sort of going there. Obviously, people go fishing for different reasons, maybe to relax or whatever, and it is intense, that whole mindset stuff and being able to catch fish. But there's no doubt that it definitely has a bearing. I've gone in like, I don't know, just gone through the motions and definitely haven't angled as well as when you're there and you want it. It might be a one-off session somewhere you think, right, everything's going into this. It's a different mindset. It's not a conscious thing necessarily because it's just been the way it is. But I completely understand that, you're right in putting yourself in that. For you talked about Horseshoe. You referenced it earlier. You had a result on there, which is very different because Horseshoe it's a big venue. You haven't really had time to go there and prime swims.
No.
But you had a result. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, well, this is where I think I've stepped in something, to be honest, because again, we, you know, like when I look back at some of the fish I've had, it's like I'm very, very blessed to have had this one. But Horseshoe again, we went up there. We had a staff day up there for the Angling Trust when I very first joined the Angling Trust actually, and we went up there. We fished the night after the conference, and we pulled the pegs for where we were going to be fishing. You know, and I came out quite low in the draw and I pulled this peg out and I said, I'll go into this one. And it was, I think it was Winter Disabled, I think it was called, or Winter Point. No, Winter Disabled. And walked into the swim and I was like, this looks nice. I was like, the wind's like coming down this end of the lake, big chunk of water out there. I was like, yeah, this is looking good for it, you know? And my colleague Dean, who's also a friend of mine, he pulled a swim that wasn't looking that favourable at all, to be honest with you. So I said to Dean, I was like, Dean, come and double up with me, mate. I said, we put 2 rods out each. I said, you know, like, come and double up. We have a social, do you know what I mean? We're here on a work thing. It'd be nice to catch up with you as well and we can have a chat. So anyway, Dean came in to swim with me as well. On that one, and again, it's just coming into that understanding sort of stuff, isn't it? Whereby, like, when I looked over to the far margins, there was some houses in the background and you've got clear chimney pots.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's obviously going to be a spot that's going to be cleaned, you know, it's going to be a presentable one. You run through in your heads and be like, right, if I'm trying to find a clear spot on somewhere like this, a big gravel pit, how many wraps are people most likely going to be fishing at? And it's like, well, most people aren't going to be fishing at 35 wraps.
Yeah.
Most people are going to be like leathering it out there around about 25 wraps, aren't they? 22 to 25. So wrapped up at 25 wraps, aimed at the big chimney pot. went out into the middle of the lake, cracked down. I was like, there we go, you know, like that's the spot found, isn't it? You know, and I put rods out on there, baited with a big bucket of bait over it, actually put quite a bit of bait out. And the funny thing is with this one is that in my mind, when I think of horseshoe fish, right, I've got a picture in my head of the Greening brothers. They're friends of mine, especially Rob. I've got a picture of the Greening brothers when they were real little. I think it was on a Horseshoe Carp Society Junior Day or something.
Fishing, yeah.
And there's a picture. I think it's both. I think they're both there with this real beautiful leanie sort of like laid across their laps type thing. They must have only been about 11 years old. And there's this like what I class as like your classic horseshoe fish is laying there. And sort of when I'm thinking of horseshoe, that's the fish that is in my mind. You know, it's these real classic sort of like leanies. And anyway, fishing away, got to the morning and nothing had happened overnight. Woke up in the morning, Dean's standing there with a cup of tea. I'll get a cup of tea. It's first thing in the morning. Look out, I said, you seen anything? And he's like, nah. And then with that, it was literally as if a switch had gone like this and fish started nutting out everywhere out there. You know, like it was like bosh, 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 bosh. And I was like, oh my God. I was like that. Whoa. Anyway, I've got 2 on the dance floor, over the bait and stuff. And it's just not happening. You know, and for about an hour this has happened, and we're getting
they're showing over your spot.
I wouldn't say on the spot. Right, they're all around. They were on the spot, but they were also all around the area. They're just having, you know, when they have that big party out in the middle of the lake, and they're just all having a lovely time. They're all boshing out everywhere, and you're just like, how can I not have a bite? And I'm there, and I'm pacing up and down. And Jamie, the CEO, he'd had a couple of fish from up on the point. That's right. And the guys were like, we want to go up there and have a photo. And I was like, no, give us a bit longer, you know, it's gonna go off. Anyway, I was like, I've got to make something happen here. So I thought, right, something's not right with the rigs, they're not picking up the bait. So I wound in, I changed over to a little trigger wafter inside a solid bag, glugged up with liquid, cast it out there, and it just went down so sweet, mate. Like honestly, like the drop on it was just beautiful. It was, yeah, in the wind, it just hit the spot. The line stretched out. It's like bang, cracked down. You know, when I was like, that,
yeah, that's got to go.
Is a bite. You know, and as anglers, we know that I was like, that is a bite. That is going to go. Put it down on the rest. Continued to show and stuff. Yeah, and sure enough, like 5 minutes later, I just pulled up, beep, 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 like tip bent over, played it in. But the funny thing was, I'm playing this fish in, and I'm thinking, this feels quite heavy, and it's like wallowing. And I could see it in the clear water. It was just coming like more or less straight towards me.
On
like,
the surface, yeah.
Just under the surface, couple of foot under, and I'm playing it in the waves and stuff. And, you know, and I can see it coming in, and I'm like, that looks like a good fish, you know. Dean at this time is wrapping up because he's trying to move over to solids as well, because he's like, you know, bloody hell, that was quick, you know, and he's trying to change over to a solid. And I'm playing it in, and I was like, Dean, mate, I was like, that's a nice fish. I had the net there and stuff. I was like, Dean, I said, get on the net, mate. So he comes over, gets on the net, and this fish comes over the course, and I'm like, mate, that's proper. And Dean sort of like, he's like, yeah, that's a nice one. Leaves it and starts carrying on doing his bags and stuff like that to get his rod out. And I'm looking at his fish in the water, and I'm like, Dean, mate, I was like, that's over 40. And he's like, nah, it can't be, mate. I said, well, what do you mean it can't be? And he said, well, there's no 40s in it. It's like, there's not a 40 in it. And I'm like double taking this thing like multiple times. I'm like looking at it, and I'm like, I rolled it over the net, and I'm like, Dean, I said, I think it's that fish that's there's a photo of it inside the hut. And he's like, oh, that one's 38, right? And I'm like, I'm sure that's over 40. I'm sure that's bigger than 38. Anyway, transpires that Miles comes over. We get this fish out, and it was a fish called Casper, which is one of the original leanies that has been in the lake donkey's years. Like, it hadn't come out for about, I don't know, I think it was 18 months or something. Like, people had sort of like forgotten about it as being like one of the big ones. I think it was 41 something, but it was a new lake record since they had the fish kill way back like 10, 15 years ago, which they unfortunately lost a lot of their fish. Yeah, and I was like buzzing, like what a way to start your time at the Angling Trust, man, to go and just go and have a new lake record out of Horseshoe. But again, it was just making those little changes. It was just identifying, just having that feeling that there's something not quite right, and then acting upon that, and then making those changes which led to that bite. I could have sat there on the spots and not caught anything.
Yeah, 100%. It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Exactly.
It's going to happen. It doesn't happen. You go home.
Exactly that. And it's just making those little changes. And again, it's just that process. Like, you know, I did a review. Like, you could use that model, can't you? You know, like, I did a review there and then. I was like, look, it's morning time. They're all showing over my spot. I'm not getting a bite. What's going wrong? okay, how can we gain some better understanding on this? They're obviously either my rig's tangled or not presented properly, or the hook bait I'm using, which at the time was a Ronnie on a bright yellow. I was like, they're spooking off of that, and they're grubbing around on the other bits of food that's been put out there in the sort of munger mix that we put out. So I was like, right, okay, just change the plan. Do you know what I mean? Came up with a different plan, pinged it at it. 10 minutes later, that's all it took. 10 minutes, you've got a lake record on there. And I'm not saying it happens all the time like that, but it's just having that process that you can go through to get yourself into the best opportunity, I think is key. And I think it all comes down to experience as well, Hassan, doesn't it? Like the more you carp fish, the more you understand what the feel of the lake is like. Are they going to respond to some bait? Are they coming in, like I said to you, are they coming into that stag as a bit of refuge?
Yeah.
They're not wanting 5 kilo of bait under that snag. They're coming into that snag because it's their little safe place. You know, I had a lovely fish out of a little club lake. Again, a really old leanie. It was my first night fishing there, actually, and I walked around and there was just a little snag bush down on the right-hand side, down in the margin, and it was my first ever visit to the venue, and I walked around with Dave. I went into this swim, and I looked up the margin, and this bush just looked beautiful. Do you know what I mean? It was just perfect. It was like into the water, big canopy. There was a little like cove that you could sort of like get your bait into, if you know what I mean. And I thought, yeah, this looks really good for the fish holding in there as a safe haven, a little sanctuary type thing. And I ended up I poled in half a boilie. That's all I fished with, just a half, I think it was a 15 mil bottom bait it was. So I just basically broke a bait in half. So it looked like just an old leftover half bait that someone had put inside there. Fished that on a single rod down underneath the bush. Lo and behold, 4 o'clock in the morning, it was the target fish from the lake on there, this 36 pound leanie that I was after. But again, it's just having that, you know, that bush didn't look like the type of place that it wanted to respond to bait. The bush looked like the place that the big uns would go to just hold up and have a lovely time. And a little, if I go and stick a little Malteser on that table in front of you, I bet I could I get a bite out of you, couldn't I? If I go and stick a roast dinner over there, you probably think I might have that later because I'm in the middle of a podcast. You know what I mean? So, you know,
it's those decisions, isn't it? Those key decisions. As you say, there is a wealth of experience that goes to those key decisions, but there also is that moment in your head as an angler in every session where you think, maybe not every session because some people have absolute blinders and catch from the off, but you think, should I change something, or is it a case of just time? And I think sometimes the lack of time it makes you angle better. Like you knew there, your boy's calling you to go and do a photo on Horseshoe. You know you ain't got much time.
Yeah.
If you're in any sort of hesitant mood as to whether to recast or whatever, you think, well, sod it, I'm going anyway. I might as well try, and you do it, and then you get a result. But some people, and I see it, you get locked into sort of, you've put some bait out, you're ready for that payout, and you're reluctant to do anything.
Oh,
and if you get time, I think the more time, I definitely know, the more time I've got, the more I'll sit and wait it.
Exactly that. And that you're exactly right on that one. And I think that's where experience of doing other fishing comes into it. If you've just gone into carp fishing and you've just watched some DVD, not knocking DVDs and stuff like that, but you're a huge DVDs. How old are you, boy? They're it's YouTube now, isn't it? Or probably or TikTok. But you know, but if you're basically a sofa angler and you're watching these things and you're like, okay, well, they've got a load of time. They're going to this lake. They're putting a load of mix out on this spot, and they're sitting there waiting for it. Yeah, that's all well and good. And then that's the style of fishing that you do. Yeah, that's all well and good. That's your style of doing it. When you come from actually learning other types of fishing and fish behavior and how fish feed and stuff like that, you start picking up all this wealth of knowledge that will just blow your mind when it comes to putting it into practice carp fishing wise. You know, I remember doing a pole match. I got into pole fishing, like match fishing on my old fishery, and I entered a few matches, and I thought, right, I'm gonna fill it in with pellet, right, halfway out in the track as they call it, like I think it's 6 meter line. I was like, I'm going to cup out 8 cups of pellet at the start of this match. Boy. I was like, I'm going to get them absolutely fizzing up on this. Being a stupid, naive carp angler going into a carp match. And anyway, I went over long. I was fishing 16 metres up against the reeds and stuff, caught a few shallow on the pole and things like that. And then my middle line started blowing up. It started absolutely fizzing up a treat, right? And I was rubbing my knees, Hassan. I was like, here we go. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to, bring on 200-pound weights and stuff like this. Mate, I went over that fizzing with my pole rig, fishing a pellet over the top of it, and I didn't catch a fish for an hour, right? My float was moving around. It was dipping a little bit. I wasn't getting any bites at all, right? And one of the most experienced match anglers sort of like in our area was fishing on the peg next door. And at the end of the match, I said to him, I was like, mate, I can't understand what was going on. I don't know from my rigs and stuff like that. I said, I had them absolutely churning it up and fizzing, and I couldn't catch one from that track. And he said, you put too much bait in, G. I said, well, what do you mean? He said, you've put too much bait in. He said, you've put too much bait in there. They're filter feeding. Their heads down in the silt. They're puffing the food through them and stuff. They're what he referred to as filter feeding. He said, if we get them going like that, we will come off that spot and start another line because you can't catch them, right? And it's always stuck in my mind, that little moment, because I'm like, how many times do I do that where I wake up at dawn, I look out and my spot is going absolutely ballistic, that I've put 8 kilo of bait on the night before.
Yeah.
And then you sit there behind your bobbins and nothing happens, right? Or you see a few fish showing and stuff and you're like, but they're tearing it up out there. And it's just those little experiences. I'm like, maybe I've overbaited that last night. They are feeding on that, but the way that they're feeding on it, the way they're hammering into that bait, I'm not going to get a bite off of them. They're not catchable. And I know it sounds silly to people that haven't experienced that, but like this experienced match guy that was next to me who gave me like clear advice was like, mate, you've blown that line. He's like, you've overfed it. You know, you won't catch them. It's like, just come off of it, start a new line sort of like 2 meters away or something and bait it slowly and stuff and build your swim up and light your swim again. And you have much more chance of catching them. And I think it's just bringing in those little bits of experience from other angling, isn't it? You know, that help you with carp fishing as well.
Another capture, mate, from Abbey in France, mate.
Oh, what with
what's that all about?
With Roop and the boys there. Yeah, that was one of my favourite. Went over there, got invited over Rupert Whiteman and some of his mates and his crew. And do you know what great fun we had over there that week. You know, it was just, the lads were awesome. I met Stu, I'm in business with now, like first time over there. The lads were amazing. And it was one of those weeks where you just had a really good holiday fishing session, you know, and clubbed them at the same time. Like, I don't know how many of the 18 we had out, Hassan. It was ridiculous.
Did ya?
Yeah, not me personally, but like Sean, Ash, they were clubbing it. Stu was clubbing it as well. It was the first time actually that I'd seen bait boats being used that effectively. And I know, like, we're going back a few years ago now, but it was a different level of use of bait boats. And from
what way? What do you mean?
Well, they were using it. They were finding their spots that they were fishing to, but they were able to go back out and accurately put their rods back out on the spots after they'd had fish without disturbing the feeding fish. So it meant that they were fishing four rods, too tight on a spot. So they were basically getting like 2 dinner plates going, having 2 rods on the spot. They catch fish off of that. They'd then be able to get the bait out there in a pitch black, using sort of like, they'd still be wrapping up their rods and stuff. They'd be using far tree markers and stuff. So they weren't just relying on drive and
so
drop.
It weren't GPS job?
No, a lot of them didn't have that. No, not
Right.
GPS. It wasn't like going back out on GPSs. I think a few of them had the fish finders, but it was very much a case of like, you know, fishing it more traditionally, but using the bait boat as a real resource to your fishing, you know, to be able to drop it silently back on the spots, fishing 2 on a spot. So you're getting like continuous takes, you're building your swim through the night. By the time the morning came, you know, they'd have things, they'd have fish wrapped up, mate, you know. Whereas for me doing it with the spom, they hated the noise of the spom. So as soon as you put the spom out there, they were out of my peg, you know, and you were relying on them hopefully coming back and drifting back in. And, you know, so anyway, that session, we went over there and I arrived. Everyone else had already got their swims. And I went into peg, I think it was peg 1 or peg 3. It was down one end of the lake. I said to Roop, and again, this is where like a bit of knowledge comes in, isn't it? I said, Roop, what's that peg like? You know, because I'm here for a week, but my type of angling is I like to be sort of like making things happen, you know, and sort of like real, you know, confident. He said, look, G, he said, I guarantee you, he said, because he used to be the bailiff down there.
Yeah, he knew him. Yeah,
exactly. He said, that swim, you won't catch fish all week. He said, but it normally throws up a good one. He said, if you sit in that swim for a week, you've got a good chance of making your holiday, right? I was like, that's enough for me. I was like, so I sat in the swim, 3 days into it, Hassan, yeah? 3 days into it, hadn't had a bite. But I just that was all the knowledge I needed to actually believe in what he was saying. Do you know what I mean? Like, to have the confidence in there. And yeah, lo and behold, first thing in the morning, mate, I got I was fishing tight to the far margins, just rod pulled up, tip went round, out the bed straight away into it. And I'm playing this fishing. I was using 10-foot rods at the time. I used to use a lot of 10-footers. And I'm playing this fishing. There's a big bank of weed in front of me, and I have the net over the back of it. I I quite like using shorter rods, 10-foot rods with a long landing net pole. I tend to find that it's actually really quite easy to net fish like that, you know. So I was using short rods, big 9'6" landing net pole. I had my net over the back of the weed. Anyway, lifted this fish up, pulled it over the net cord, and I was like sort of shuffling the net to get it in there. So got the retainer down, put it in the retainer, and I'm like, this thing is big. Like, it won't fit in my retainer, right? And I'm like, this thing's long. Anyway, sort of like, you know, shuffled its nose up in the retainer, sort of thing, zipped it up, and I went up to see Roop. I'm like, Roop, I've got a really nice fish, mate. He's like, how big? You know what Roop's like. He won't get he won't get up and do anything unless it's over
20 pounds.
Exactly. Yeah, you know, it's like, I'm not. He's like, how big? I'm not getting up, and, you know, unless it's over 50 G, I'm not entertaining it. And I was like, I don't know if it's over 50. I said, I've never had. I said, it's really long. He said, how long? I said, well, it barely fits in my retainer, mate. I said, he's like, well, there's only, I think it was 2 fish. He said, it's either Maria, which is the one that at the time most people wanted, you know, as an absolute cracker. All this other fish. And he came over, he just looked at the retainer, he's like, mate, I know exactly what's inside there. And he opened it up, and it was Maria, yeah, 63 and a half, I think it was, something like that. But the most beautiful carp I've ever caught, you know, just long proportions, just like beautiful colours on it. That just made my week. And
catch her on? What was it? Hook bait?
Do I have that on?
What did you have it on?
I think I was baiting over corn, I think it was corn over the far side, just on a basic like Ronnie and corn, just your classic sort of like spot fishing over on the far side on a bit of Ronnie and corn, or fake corn I think I was using. Yeah, so it's
how long you had it out there? 3 nights. You said nothing.
Yeah, no, I'd recast it. Yeah, I'm not one of those anglers that can sit on, like, as you can probably tell from this podcast, I can't sit on a rod out there for ages without thinking it might be tangled and stuff. So I've got to, like, you know, if I haven't had a bite off it, I've got to try and, even if it's repositioning it on the same spot and getting that drop, I just feel that, you know, like I could have been done. I could have. It's
been marked or something.
Yeah, we've got like the, you know, you see the underwater videos now, don't you? Of fish picking it up and dropping it, picking it up and dropping it and stuff like that. And in my mind, it's like, if I haven't had a bite and bite time in my mind has gone, it's better to redo it or to wind it in, rest the swim a bit, put it back out again. Yeah, I'm quite active like that, you know. I can't put a rod. I know some people say I'll put it out and then 4 days later it went.
Yeah. There is people who can do that, isn't there?
I think the only place I do that is at Rainbow. The only place I'll do that is at Rainbow, because the hassle of, it takes you a whole day to get your rod sorted on spots out there because of the topography of the lake and the way you're fishing, and sort of like, you know, honestly, like a whole day can go like that and you're just like, Christ, now I've got 4 rods out, you know, it's and you tend to leave them for a good 24 hours before redoing them, you know, because you don't want the boat traffic going over your swim. It's just, yeah, you tend to sort of like put it out there and leave it for a good 24 hours to wait for the fish to come back on. But
just like you said, mate, to be fair, information-wise, that's a lot of anglers, successful anglers that have caught big ones. That is a tactic there, is sort of waiting them out for 48 hours and longer, isn't it?
Yeah, really? That's it. Yeah, exactly. But again, it comes into what's at your disposal. You know, like if you've got that in your bag and that's the way that you fish longer sessions. You know, I know a few people that are very, very, very good anglers, like Stu Higgs, who I've mentioned before. You know, my business partner at South Coast Rods. He, very good angler. He catches loads and loads of fish. But me and him are completely different anglers.
Yeah,
completely. He's more of a session angler. The way that he fishes to his strengths to an absolute T. His confidence in what he's doing is 100%. He knows that he will catch fish, you know, like the way that he does it, it's completely different than my style, but that's the important thing, I think, to be successful with inside fishing. Successful is one of these sort of like judgmental words, isn't it? But I think you're better off saying to be effective in your angling is to know your own, how long you can have, your own personal personality, what would best suit your anglers. Some of the best anglers out there, as far as capture wise, you know, or efficiency, you know, they're pretty hyperactive. Yeah. I can think of a few, you know, off the top of my head that are like bouncing around all over the place.
Yeah.
But their style of fishing has been adapted to their personality, so that their fishing has become so fine tuned and so effective that they are absolutely amazing at that style of fishing. If you have someone that hasn't got that personality, that you try and get them to fish like that, it won't happen. And you see,
you've only got to look at Al, haven't you?
Exactly. That's what's, yeah. Like Al was out fishing with him the other day. The energy that he's got, you know, like the style of fishing that he does, the same as Ollie as well. You know, like it's amazing. And if you have got that sort of like personality type that you can do that, you know, and that energy or that sort of like attention to detail to make things happen, like at the drop of a hat type thing, the way that they fish, if you can do that, that's wicked. But there's a lot of people out there that haven't got that personality. That's not them. So trying to emulate the way that they fish will not make you effective. Yeah. And it's not just inside fishing, it's in anything that you do. You know, I think that again, we're going back to like the personal development and stuff. The first thing that you need to do is to actually identify your own personal traits, your own strengths, your own weaknesses, what makes you tick, you know, do a bit of like self-reflection as to, you know, who you are, what you want from things, and then try and work things around that.
Yeah.
We go back into time, you know, like, and things change as well, Hassan. You know, I've got a young family now. We spoke about this a couple of days ago when we chatted over the phone, but I've got a young family. I've got 2 kids now. I haven't got any particularly local lakes to me that are really like giving me the buzz type thing at the moment, you know. And I've got to sit back and reflect on how am I going to go forward carp fishing, because what are my priorities in carp fishing at the moment? You know, like my fishing used to be quick overnighters, one night a week, one night every 2 weeks, usually one night every 2 weeks during the sort of like spring season and autumn season. But now I've got 2 kids in the household. That's not, how can I put this? That doesn't lead to a happy home if I'm going and doing that, you know, like, so I need to reflect on that and actually try and make some changes. I'm not the angler that I was 4 or 5 years ago. You know, now I've got little Evie in the house. I can't be that person.
Yeah.
Before we had Evie, we had young Amber. But actually when Amber was young, me going and doing a quick overnighter and not coming back home that night and going straight to work the next day actually worked quite well in the household, because it gave Anna a bit of chance to have an early night, put the kid down. She was up 2 or 3 times a night feeding and that sort of stuff with Amber. And it just allowed her, she didn't need the hassle of me coming in and the alarm going at 5 o'clock to go to work and stuff. You know, it worked. So, and because I had that, you know, that clarity that everything's cool at home, do you know what I mean? I can go fishing, I can focus on my fishing. Whereas if I tried to do that now, and I have tried to do it now with 2 kids in the house, I try and do a quick overnighter, I can't get into the right headspace.
Yeah.
I'm stressed. Yeah, I'm turning up and I'm stressed because either I'm turning up late because of, you know, the kids have gone to bed at 8 o'clock. I'm getting to, like, Christ, this year, I ended up turning up at my syndicate like a couple of times at midnight. Yeah. Inflating a boat and trying to get out so I could get like to early morning bite time and having to be off at 8 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. And I'm out there thinking I'm crazy. Like, I literally have overstepped the mark on this because this isn't effective at all. You know, you can't be doing this. I'm tired the next day. I'm not fishing effectively. Like, this isn't the way to, and you know, in your head, this isn't the way to fish this lake. You know, this isn't effective for this lake. You know, you'll need to be doing it a different way. So I think it's just having that self-awareness within us as anglers to be like, how am I going to be effective when it comes to my fishing, and how is that not going to have a negative effect on other areas of my life? Because, you know, we know, as you know, we've spoken about this, you know, if you've got a happy home, mate, you can get out there and you can fish happily, you can be clear in your mind.
Yeah, cool.
Fishing shouldn't come as a in conflict really with your work and with your everyday life. It should complement, you know, like you're looking at it to complement and to enhance your performance. In my mind, fishing has now become a way, and we talk about like mindfulness and stuff, and mental health and well-being, but fishing for me now is a way of me improving my mental health and well-being, my mindfulness, and so that when I do go back into the workplace, when I do go back into home, I'm happy, you know,
of course.
I'm reconnected, I'm switched back on again. Yeah. I'm not just turned into this, like, you know, I work quite a lot in the office from home, on my own in my little office shed in the back garden, you know, when I'm not going out and visiting clubs and stuff and doing the work I do at the trust as a development officer. But that means that for quite long periods, I'm sort of like isolated at home, working from home. For me now, fishing, and I was thinking about this when I was driving up here, for me, the emphasis of why I go fishing moving forward has actually changed quite a bit, changed dramatically. I think now, when I reflect on it, what I want from my fishing is to be fishing a venue that's got nice fish in it. They don't have to be massive. But I want a really nice social group of people there. I don't want to be, for me now personally, at my stage in life, I'd like to be going to a venue, making friends, sitting down, having a cup of tea, maybe a beer and a barbecue and stuff, like using it as a form of a social outlet that I can chat fishing with people and get me away from, you know, like
in
just
your office on
exactly,
your own.
like reconnect with fishing and friendships and stuff like that, rather than it being an out and out campaign water where where I'm sort of like, you know, living in a bush, trying to stalk out a big fish for, you know, I think that for me personally, with a busy, heavy family life now and with work life being busy and, you know, sort of like with my focus needing to be really dialed in on that, I need to use angling for something slightly different than what I used to. And I think that for a lot of people that may be listening to this is quite a good thing to do, is actually to sit down and be honest with yourself, you know, have a bit of self-reflection, be honest. Why do you want to go fishing? You know, and there's no right or wrong answer. You know, that's the other thing as well. It's not like if you want to go and catch 12 pounders all night long and you just love the sound of that alarm being screaming off, mate, go and do it. You know, if that makes you happy, like, go and do it, man. If you want to book in a lovely swim that's nice and gravel with an electric socket behind you so you can watch the football on Saturday, you can have a barbecue with your mates, you can get your mate down from Manchester that you haven't seen for 2 years, you can book the swims up in advance and know you can have a nice little lads weekend down there. You know what? If that's what you want from your fishing, go and do it, guys. Yeah. Don't find yourself, life's too short to be finding yourself doing things like that you think other people will respond to or that you think you should be doing. Do you know what I mean? Like, just go and enjoy yourself, yeah. And if you get the buzz out of that, there are a lot of people out there that will get the buzz out of that hunt for that big fish. Do you know what I mean? And you know, that's awesome. You know, the hunt for the big fish is awesome. But I know that at my stage of my life, you know, at this age with a young family and stuff, I can't be going and embarking on hunts for unknowns, you know, and stuff like this, because I haven't got the time. I haven't got the energy to be putting into that, because my energy needs to be put elsewhere, or I feel I should be putting my energy in elsewhere, which is with my young family, you know.
Yeah, fair dues, mate. I completely empathise with that. Before we move into sort of coaching section and angling trust, which you've just referenced there, Rainbow, you talked about leaving baits out for a long period of time, but you've had another decent result on there, mate, and it's a bit of a strange meeting of people and place, isn't it, for you?
Yeah, so I just put his cup down. There we go. So Rainbow. So the story of Rainbow is, when I was younger, we used to, like, I've been a mad keen carp angler since I was, very first started fishing when I was 6, and I just got fascinated, like I said to you, about water and just drawn to the water side. And then I sort of started getting into carping when I was about 11. But when I was all through my teenage years, actually, we used to go on family holidays to France, like Euro camping. And they were brilliant. But the campsite always had to have a lake. Yeah, because every day I'll be fishing. Like like a written.
So you were catered for.
I was catered for. Yeah, it was like kids club for G is fishing lake. Yeah, and just pack my stuff up. I remember going to some campsites and we were just catching. I think I actually remember the number. I caught 104 poisson chats. You know, those little ones with the spikes on them. To me, I was in heaven. I was 11 years old. I was like the king of the campsite, mate. 104 poisson chats.
Any big ones? How big did that?
And a 4 meter whip. I think the biggest was about 8 inches. Do you know what I mean? But I was like, you know, I'm doing this. I'm king of the campsite here. 11 years old, my 4 meter whip. You know, and 104 poisson chats. I was like, yeah, I nailed this one. But it had to have a lake. Anyway, by the time I was like 14, I was well into my carp fishing. So I was fishing at Broadlands like most weekends and stuff with the Brat Pack down there. And we went over to, I can't remember, it was quite far down south. I can't remember the actual thing. It was a Dordogne region. But there was a Dutch family and a family from Essex, Mark and Jackie and their family. And Mark and Hans, which were the dads, they loved carp fishing. And obviously I love carp fishing. And that was another family from down in Glastonbury way, Stuart. So there's 4 of us that loved our carp fishing. So we met up and we were fishing on the campsite lake and stuff like that. But we went home after 2 weeks. They stayed for 3 weeks and they found a lake near Brive, right? This big public water, days only. And they went down there and they fished days only. I think they did 2 day trips. Hans had a 40 common, I think it was. I think Mark had them to 38. I might be wrong with the numbers. It was a long time ago, but they had like some very big fish for the time, right? On this public water, days only. So we booked the campsite for the following year. All 4 families going down there, lovely campsite. And the idea was that we were going to go off and do these day trips to this lake in Brive. Now, about 3 months before we were due to go, so it was around about Easter time, I remember sort of like the old home phone ringing. Do you know what I mean? And it was Mark, and he said, we've got a problem because apparently the lake's been drained and the fish have all been removed. Right. And you can imagine being 14 years old. I'm devastated, Hassan. I'm absolutely devastated. My dream lake. I can't fish it. And but he said, but we know where some of the fish have gone. He said it's quite a drive from the campsite. I think it was another like 3 hours or something, but it's a lake called Lac Curtain, right? So I was like, oh, okay. So we booked in to do, I think we did either 3 days or 3 nights. I think it may have been 3 days, 2 nights. So we booked in to go down to this unknown Lake Curtain, right? And I always remember it. As we turn up, and it's quite hard to, for those people who've been to Rainbow, know it's like in the middle of this massive forest region where every road and every bit of forest looks identical, yeah? And this is before the days of like sat-nav and Google Maps, yeah? So you're looking at, so we're driving around, it's like not light yet. We're there like real early in the morning, and we're trying to find the fire roads that like leads down to Rainbow. And they all look the bloody same, you know, and we've got this AA route map out or whatever it is, trying to find it. But anyway, we eventually found the lake, went down there, met Pascal, and he put us into these swims and stuff. We went around there and fishing. And I always remember Mark, and I think it was Mark and, who was Mark fishing with? Hans, I think it was. But they were fishing one of the swims. I think it is now known as 19. We didn't have boats or anything. We weren't using boats. We were casting.
What kid?
Or we had but I had an inflatable boat. I'm pretty sure I had an inflatable boat. I took a boat down in this little inflatable boat that I had, right? So we went down there. I remember going into Mark's swims and just looking at his lines, and they were like, it was like he was fishing the margins. And I was like, where are you fishing? He's like, mate, you won't believe it. He said, I'm fishing about 60 yards out. He said, it's like 40 foot deep or something. I don't know. That's probably an exaggeration, but it was proper deep. Like he was pretty pissed that he was fishing in this depth of water. Anyway, I was round in, I think it would be like, probably what would be peg 15, I think it would be. It's not really a peg anymore. But I was fishing out. I think I had either 10, I think it was 10 fish up to 13 pounds, right?
13 pounds.
13, little tiny little stocky things. However, every time we got a bite from something that was half decent, like within 5 seconds, 10 seconds, you'd just be like, just gone, right? Lost, cut off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, we know now, don't we, with how snaggy Rainbow is. If you look at that peg that I was in, I think there's about 3 or 4 like bars that come up to like within 2 foot of the surface in front of it. At the time, we had no idea what was underwater. I was using
here we go.
I was using 12-foot twin power carp rods, 2.5 test curve. Excuse
Beasts. Me. Absolute broomstick.
Oh, mate, I had 12-pound big game line on, bud. I didn't go with my spools of 10. I went with my spools of 12 on there, you know.
That's proper tow rope.
Yeah, little 3,500 bait runners. I did have a little boat. I remember boating out to the little island, finding this like massive shelf, this little drop-off thing. And anyway, I was fishing there. So we didn't have any big ones. We left, and that was it. And I didn't return. And then it was in the middle of sort of COVID, or when we could start fishing again and traveling again through COVID. But it was my 40th during COVID.
Right.
And I couldn't really go and do anything for my 40th. And Rob Greening said to me, he said, look, geez, like I've got a peg on Rainbow. It's your 40th, mate. Do you want to join me? And I'll forever be grateful for Rob for doing this, because it was honestly like, I was like, thank you so much, mate. That's like, at the time I didn't know Rob that well. I'd known him through the match scene and through bumping into him and stuff. But, you know, he wasn't sort of like what I class as a real close friend. And it was a real nice gesture of him to do that, you know. So I went and fished peg 5, and I turned up at Rainbow and it looked exactly the same. Exactly the same. Like, it's not been commercialised. It's not been gravel tracked. It's not been like, you know, yeah, it just looked exactly the same as it did back in 1994 or whenever I went there. So yeah, went back, had a hard week fishing in peg 5, hard week. I think it was Big Fish Thursday. I think it was. I'd found a spot down the little back gully, boated over there. There's a snag bush there, found a ledge. I'd already had 1 fish off there. I think I'd had 2 fish up until then, 2 smaller fish, I think it was, but it was a hard week. Like, you know, we're like, this is rock hard week. And then, yeah, I was actually, you know, I was going up to the shower, and it's like you can like leave your rods with your partner as long as there's someone in the swim. So I was actually going up to the shower to go to the shower block. And I got up to the car at the back of the swim, and I couldn't find That's right. I couldn't find my keys. I didn't have my keys. I thought I had my keys in my pocket. I didn't have my keys. So that made me walk down the slope, back into the swim, rummage around, found my keys that I thought were in my bag, went back up to the van, right? Just about to jump into the van, and I had a massive savage drop back on my rod down the channel. So I ran down there, hit into it, playing this fishing from the boat, epic boat battle, just being towed around everywhere, just plodding around. I got it on video footage, mate. It was amazing. And then this donkey just appeared next to the boat, mate. This big old mirror, 67, I think it went. But yeah, one of the proper old ones. And yeah, what a fish that was. That was one of my favourite moments. And it also going back there, going back to somewhere that I had that connection with when I was younger, and going back and sort of like putting things right from that session. Because I remember that session, although I had loads of little ones out and stuff, I felt beat up by that. I felt I remember that feeling of being, at the time at 14, I thought I could carp fish. I was casting wise at Broadlands. We were like up there with some of the best in the country for accuracy of tight fishing next to islands. I know like Wayne and the boys up at Farlow's were doing the same, plugging leads real tight to islands. But, at the age of like 14, 15, I thought, yeah, I can hold my own. Got beat up.
Smashed up.
Beat up by Rainbow. Absolutely brutalised me and punished me and just spat us back out the gate, just like, don't come back for another 20 years, G. So yeah, to go back out and make it happen was good. Yeah. And thank you, Rob. Thank you very much, Rob. It's amazing. Sort of like, again, it's that positivity, isn't it? It's like,
yeah.
Man, honestly, when you talk about positivity, Rob paid me that favour, right? So we went then back. Was it on my? I think I got a week on there. I think it was my week. It was my week. So we went back last year, and it was my week. So obviously, I invited Rob. I was like, Rob, thank you very much. Like, I want you to fish.
Return the favour, yeah,
exactly. Excuse me. And we went back out into the peg. I can't remember what peg it was now. 12, I think it was. Might have been 12. Can't remember. Anyway, went back out there again. Another quite tough week. On the way out there, all I wanted was for Rob to catch a big one. Yeah. I just really want Rob to have a big fish, right? And this is where it's not cool, mate. It just gets weird, doesn't it? I don't even want to think about this, but the big mirror that appears in my head when I think about Rainbow is the big two-tone mirror, right? There's a big two-tone mirror in there. Now, we were talking before, like in the build-up, it's obviously a big thing. We were really excited and stuff, and it was like Rob really wanted a big mirror. He'd had some big comments out there, but he really wanted a big mirror. So in my head, I'm like, it's two-tone. I kid you not, the night before Rob had his take, we were sat around having a barbecue, and we were talking about the big mirror, right? The big two-tone mirror. And how it had known form from coming from this swim, it had been done captures in the spring in the past from this spot. And anyway, Rob changed one of his rods. He put it over against a snag over on the island, right? Fished it in quite shallow water and changed over to fishing a tiny, I think it was like a 13mm pop-up, right? Jeez. Something you'd use in the UK, right? Yeah. Rather than your normal bollocks rig and all this thing. He was like in shallow water, he went with a tiny little pop-up, put it over next to the snag. And lo and behold, like next morning, that was the rod that went off. And he's playing it in. And he's out there in the boat playing it in. He's in the middle of the water. And I remember this, I think he got caught up with one of his other lines or something, or the back float or something got caught on one of his lines. So he's sort of like doing this with the float, trying to untangle it. And then all of a sudden, next to the boat, up popped the fish. And you just saw him scoop it up in the net. And he's like, gee, you won't believe this. And I was like, what have you got? He's like, I've only got that dirty, great big two-tone that we were talking about last night. And I was like, no way. Brought it back in, sure enough, £76. Just colossal. And I couldn't have been, honestly, if I'd caught it, I would have been just as happy as what I was for him catching it. It was one of those great moments where I was just absolutely buzzing for him,
Oh, mate, that is. But I've had it before where, like, you've been talking and it turns up and you have that moment, I think, once everything dies down a bit, where you think about the probability of that in a general sense, and you think, this can't be just coincidence. There's 1,000 fish out there. Why that one?
Yeah, I know. Like, it's you just. I think it's because I don't think it's because you're through your mental sort of like you're calling them onto the hook, like I say, but I think it's because you're focused on that fish, you do things that will give you every single advantage to catch that fish, if that makes sense. You're sort of like, because you're angling for that fish, the probability goes up. I don't know. It's a very weird.
Yeah.
Like if you talk to Tom Duncan Dunlop, yeah, like I remember there was something about I don't know if he's come on your podcast before, but he catches loads of big fish and stuff. But there was something about I think Mr. Fred or something he was talking about from Rainbow, and he was adamant he was going to catch it. He's like, he was adamant he was going to, and he caught it. And if you want to speak to someone about like actual catching fish and having that feeling, like I know that Tom is well into that sort of stuff, you know, like he is adamant, like, you know, that's Mr. Fred. I've only heard it through secondhand stories and stuff, but you know, he was convinced that he was going to catch that.
I've got incredible mates, incredible anglers, catch loads of big ones. You'll never see them in any magazines. They're the anglers. Do you know what I mean? You go onto a place and they are the boys, regardless of the water, every type of water, unbelievable carp anglers. And I think they always said to me, like, and I'll take it wherever, is like, if you put it out there, it can happen. If you don't put it out there, it don't happen.
Yeah.
And I will wind cameraman up by going, oh, it's going to happen. Yep, I'm having the big one like that. And every now and again, it does genuinely happen. And I don't know if it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. I don't know what it is. I ain't changed my angling. I haven't done anything to sort of suit that fish. But just putting it out there sometimes, and there ain't no harm in it, it can happen. I can't explain it, but I'll forever do it.
Yeah, exactly.
After that, do you know what I mean?
It's just that confidence. It's just that sort of like, sometimes you're just like, this is going to happen. This is everything's going right. It's going to happen. You know, that fish is coming from this spot. Like you say, you talk to some of the best anglers in the country, and they're just like, I've got this feeling like it's going to happen. Sometimes we put it down to the moon phase.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something to do with us picking up on the moon phase or the pressure or something, and it's just feeling right. You know, we talk about, I've got that feeling, it's going to be good. I think as humans, we've become quite dull to picking up on the external natural environment.
Yes.
You know? Other animals do. They've got like, you know, sixth senses. They pick up on changes in the weather. They can, you know, like dogs can pick up if you're ill. Do you know what I mean? If you've got like a cancerous growth or something, you know, you've got like cancer dogs and stuff like that. If you're just about to have an epileptic fit or something, like animals pick up on stuff. And I think that deep down inside us as humans, we have got some kind of connection, much deeper connection to the outdoor environment. I think that when you start looking into our sort of like well-being and mindfulness and stuff, I think that is one of the great things about fishing, is it allows us to reconnect that with nature, you know, which I think for me personally, I was talking about being good for my work, good for my home life and stuff. I need that. You know, I was speaking to Alan, we went out and did a bit of filming the other day, and I, you know, it's really important for us. You know, fishing is really important for us, puts us in a better mood, better headspace. And I talk about like, when I say about anchoring, so anchoring is actually just allowing yourself a bit of time and a bit of space to get yourself into the moment, get into the present, and actually get yourself focused and set. And I do it quite a lot. I did it before I walked into the studio to, you know, for the podcast. And it's just taking that time to try and just set yourself mentally and sort of like, get yourself, your breathing right, get yourself focused, present. I'm not thinking about what I've got to do later this afternoon. I'm not thinking about what's going on at home. I'm not thinking about, you know, other, you know, bills to pay and stuff like this. I'm becoming present and I'm becoming in that moment. I think that's quite important with your fishing as well. You know, like turning up at like, I notice it all the time. If I turn up and I'm stressed, right, and I bring to the bank like my busy workload or what's happening at home, if something, if I've had an argument or something like that, and I turn up at the lake and I don't take the time to disconnect from that, my session will be a shocker, an absolute shocker. You know, I'll be cracking off spombs here, there and everywhere, casting up trees and stuff, because I'm bringing that energy to the bank, and it's not, I don't think it's conductive to fishing. Do you know what I mean? I need to be focused and attentive to what's going on. Do you know what I mean? And I think that is quite important when you get to these anglers that are just like, yeah, I know it's going to happen, or I can sense it. Or we get up first thing in the morning, don't we, Hassan? And you sit there and you watch the water.
Yeah.
It's quiet, it's peaceful. You can hear a pin drop. Do you know what I mean? You can hear if a fish boshes like down the other end of the lake, yeah, because you're so in tune with stuff going on around your natural environment. And I think that connectivity back to the natural environment is really important to me as an angler. That's what I love. Whether it's going and sitting, whether I'm wading out on the beach and I'm 100 meters from shore, you know, standing up to my bollocks, casting out a lure and the sun's setting, it's just that connection with nature sort of thing. And I think a lot of anglers will be able to yeah, sort of like connect with what I'm saying there. You know, it's really important for me as an angler that I take time to sort of like focus myself and just get myself set before going off and fishing, or when I arrive at a lake.
Yeah, mate, fair dues. On to sort of professional things. We've gone off the subject of actually fishing yourself, but you talked and you've referenced a fair few times your day job currently, Angling Trust Development Officer.
Yeah.
Southeast.
Southeast. Yeah, Southeast. Yeah. So I work for the Angling Trust now. I've been in post for a couple of years. Absolutely love my job. You know,
yeah,
love it. Just things just fell into place that just a job came available, and I was like, wow, that's a bit of me. So basically what I do is I go around and I support clubs, coaches, fisheries, organisations to help put on participation events.
Right.
So my role is funding from predominantly the Environment Agency, and also through core funding from the Angling Trust. But it's to help get more people fishing, to help clubs and coaches to establish programs that will actually secure the future of our sport, and to get more people out there fishing. So I've been a coach since I was 26 or something like that. You know, like when I came from America, when I came back from America and I started working in the outdoor coaching industry, I then became a qualified and licensed coach, and I've been coaching ever since. And what I'm now able to do through the Angling Trust is to take that experience of actually running a coaching organisation and having all those years of coaching, and actually go and impart that knowledge to help other organisations and clubs to set up their own projects. And it's awesome. You know, it's absolutely awesome, you know, like to feel that you are part of the next generation of angling coming through, not just in your local town or something, but to actually help people to do that. It's amazing. Yeah. So that's my day job.
2 questions, mate.
Yeah.
2 questions. First question, coaching America versus in the UK.
Yeah.
Differences, similarities. You've been in both settings.
Yeah.
And the second question, which is probably more relevant to exactly what you just talked about, sort of the legacy and anglers coming forward. Southwest, how many young anglers? Is it on the increase? Is it on the decrease? What are we saying on those two matters?
Yeah, so the difference between, like, I wasn't coaching angling inside.
It's outdoor activity.
It was, so it was sort of, you know, I was doing mountain biking, caving, climbing, all sorts of cool stuff like that, you know. I think that the way that angling has traditionally been coached, which is more like a one-to-one sort of like, I want to improve my skills or get into it, you know, you come and sit with me, and it's one-to-one coaching. When I started coaching, I looked at the other activities and sports which I coached, and I was like, why can't I work with a group of people and pass on the skills needed to a group of people and actually do group sessions and teach people in groups? And I think that's a skill that in angling we need to develop more, because it allows you to impact on more people. It makes it more cost effective. You know, if you can work with a group of, say, 6 people and teach 6 people fishing, then obviously it's not as expensive for someone as a one-on-one sort of guided session and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to sort of like try and develop that with inside the sport of actually having structured coaching plans and stuff, whereby people can come along and sign up to a course or an actual set of sessions to get into fishing. The problem with fishing is that, well, it's not a problem, but one of the barriers we've got to overcome with inside fishing is it's not like football, where you can watch football on TV and you can go down the shop and you can buy a football and you can then go into the back garden or the park and you can just kick it with your foot, right? Fishing, there's a lot more to it. We're dealing with live animals. There's a lot more equipment as well. There's skills that you need to learn and be taught before you can get the fundamental basics of fishing. You know, how to use a disgorger, how to handle a fish properly, how to photograph them, how to return them and stuff. So we really need these sorts of sessions to be taking place to allow the next generation of anglers to come through. Does that make sense? Yeah, like it's really important, I feel. And yeah, so coaching program, we've got the Angling Trust licensed coaches. So you've got level 2 coaches, which is like licensed and qualified coaches. And that's where I'd really like to see this going, whereby we've got like licensed coaches inside every club and organisation that can deliver and manage these projects with the right safeguarding in place. And
what do you think about that? Right, I'm an Angling Trust ambassador, so I'm treading very carefully.
Yeah.
I've done the coaching qualification. I'm a level 2 coach. What got me, and it's changed since, because it was quite a while ago I qualified. I think it was probably about 3 or 4 years ago. I got my level 2. And I see it across all sports. I'm a tennis player. I've seen it. I've been out to Serbia when all the Serbian tennis players sort of came out and we were sent over there to look at their coaching. Coaches in places like, I don't know, America, Serbia, whatever, wherever it is, you have to be proficient and an expert in that field to be able to coach. That doesn't mean that you would have had to have played professionally. That doesn't mean, but you have to have a knowledge base and a skill base to be able to teach it. So if I went onto a course in America, I'd need a certain level of skill demonstrated in order to do that. When you come over here, and again, it's across the board coaching, I could go to a beach volleyball coaching session and I'd come out with a level 2.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with the fact that I cannot hit a volleyball, but I know my safeguarding. I know jack all about volleyball, but I'm a level 2 coach and I can go and teach people how to play volleyball.
I think the way
Do you not think that is a fundamental issue?
I don't. So yes and no. All right. So the way that I look at the level 2 course is that is like your foundation degree, right?
Yeah.
It's like your foundation degree. Now, once you go and get your level 2, it means that you can you're proficient in risk assessing. You've got your safeguarding. Yeah. You understand how to safely manage a group next to water and lead a fishing session, right? It's like your foundation degree. Fishing's such a diverse sport, right? What you then choose to go and do with your level 2 is entirely up to you, right? You could be guiding people on a very exclusive salmon river, right? 1-to-1, and be going up there and doing that. Yeah. You could be doing corporate events, corporate entertainment. You could be running kids' birthday parties using a 3-meter whip pole. Yeah. 99% of your coaching time. Yeah. The skill sets that you're going to need to work with a group of youngsters and parents delivering birthday party sessions to a group of 10-year-olds to get them into fishing for the first time, where you're just trying to get them to, like, you know, get the bug, get hooked sort of thing. The skill set that you're going to need as a professional is going to be completely different than the skill set that you're going to need to go and do like 1-to-1 corporate guiding at £1,000 a day on the, you know, River Spey or something up in, you know, wherever it is. So I see the level 2 as being like, it's that minimum requirement. It's that foundation to say that you are following best practice with regards to things such as, like, when you're licensed, it means you've got your DBS check, your first aid,
you
your
tick
safeguarding.
the red tape boxes, mate.
It does. So it allows you to go to councils, schools, or to promote it on your website that you're a licensed coach, and it gives you the support and the insurance package from the Angling Trust to then go out and run these events. Yeah, so it means you're also insured as well through us. Then what I really try and promote people to do is to think about what you're going to use your level 2 for. Now, at the moment, a lot of level 2s are done with inside clubs in order to just run voluntary open days for the club, which are wonderful. I'm not knocking that at all. Like, it's brilliant what our volunteer network does. Yeah. They're running these lovely open days. We've got our Get Fishing awards and things that they're using to sort of like get people in, maybe 1, 2, 3 occasions. They get a certificate, get an award, you know. Yeah. So it's a really nice sort of package that we can do to get people in. And that's utilising volunteers with inside the club with the level 2 overseeing things. So they're taking that role of like looking after, as I say, the risk assessments and the organising and stuff like that, working with club volunteers to run, which is superb. I think, and the work that we do through our volunteer structure with Inside Angling, I think it was around about 37,000 people sort of like came through our Get Fishing program last year. I think it was, don't quote me on those numbers, but it was around about that. There's a lot of people got into angling through our Get Fishing program last year. But I think in order for us to take those next steps with Inside Angling, we need to look at other sports, and we need to look at more professional coaches. And I want to explain what I mean by professional coaches, because I'm not saying that volunteer coaches or people that are doing it in the clubs aren't professional in the way that they deliver their sessions, but I'm talking about earning a living from it. Because we need coaches out there that are actually able to do this as a full-time living and actually be able to meet the demands and the need of the general public, which is that they want to learn to fish, right? And go around and run sessions, because you might have a club that doesn't have a coach, but they know they need to get more people into the sport. Yeah, they're like, our junior membership's dying. how do we do that? Well, if you could get a coach that's got the capacity to come in and deliver every Wednesday evening and promote angling to the local community, running sessions every Wednesday evening on your lake and signposting people into your club, in my mind, that's a win-win. You know, that's how people get into sport, isn't it? They go, you know, if my daughter wants to try a sport, I book her into a taster session. She goes along and does a 6-week program of trampolining or something, and then joins the trampoline club or something like that. And I think that we need to try and get that with Inside Angling, that's happening on a wider scale. Personally, Hassan, I think that's really important for the growth of the sport. We've got loads of activity taking place, and we've got loads of, you know, we do have some really, really good coaches around the southeast that I've met that are doing inspirational work, you know, in the health and wellbeing sector, working with schools and stuff. But we just need more, because I get phone calls all the time from people that want to learn to fish, you know, parents, you know, mothers, dads. I get an email, you know, I've been passed your details as development officer. We live in such and such area, and my son just really wants to try fishing, and we don't have a clue what to do.
Is that realistic in terms of having coaches like that are a bit more? I don't know, because obviously you work within it.
Well, I think it's realistic. I think we need to get there. I think it needs to be a vision to actually get there. Personally, you know, and again, that's my personal viewpoint. I don't work with Inside. We've got a separate coaching sector to the Angling Trust. Yeah. You know, I'm more about the participation of actually supporting the events to take place. But I think that, in my mind, when you look at other sports and things, we need to get to the point where wherever you are in the country, you can actually sign yourself up. And as I said, I touched on it before, but what we do through volunteering is amazing. I've never known a sport like it, where we've got so many cool volunteers that are just like, I really want to help. And what we're doing with the volunteer network is amazing. But what I'm noticing through my role is that we've got projects that are awesome. Like, I was down at the South Downs show, and Petersfield Angling Club were there, engaging with members of the public. They're doing like magnetic fishing game, casting activities, promoting their sessions that they do with their volunteers during the summer. And at the end of the show, I think they had something like 300 families that had signed up, registering interest in wanting to go fishing and learn fishing, which is amazing. And Sean, that was there, said to me, he sort of put me to one side. I said, Graham, he said, look, we're already, when our bookings go live every year, our spaces fill out within 12 hours. He's like, we've got all this extra demand here. Do you know of any other volunteers or coaches that could come and support us? But the thing is that that's happening all over my region.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome projects that are at capacity. Now, when I'm looking at this, I'm like, they're at capacity at the moment. Like what Sean and Petersfield are doing is absolutely amazing. Like, I was speaking to the coaches and the volunteers there, and they're, you know, a lot of them have had to stop their match fishing calendar because they give up their Sundays now to do their junior coaching program rather than fishing on the match series with inside the club themselves. So they're actually taking that, you know, that step to remove their own personal fishing to go and help people get into the sport, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And it's just actually it's us being able to, in my mind, upscale this delivery sort of model. We need more coaches. We've just gone through Richard, who's the head of coaching, has looked and changed and modified the coaching structure to allow people to now go into, rather than doing your level 1 coaching and then having to go and do your level 2, if you're now experienced angler, you can now go in and become a level 2, which means that you're an event coach, which means that basically you are a level 2, so straight into it, which is going to make it much, much easier for people like myself to work with clubs and say, right, okay, let's get a level 2 with inside this club structure to start setting these programs and projects up. But
so numbers are there. What you're saying is not an engagement. It's not an engagement issue. I think COVID changed that because there was not forced, but basically there wasn't a lot else that people could do, was there? And I think that opened doors in terms of that as well. I've noticed a lot of kids subsequently that probably may not have picked up a fishing rod unless you sort of literally took them, like somebody that might have just literally gone, look, come. They've accessed it. They're footballers, or they're, I don't know, whatever, tennis players, cricket players, whatever they may be predominantly, but they've come into it. It's been given a bit more of a swing. And I've noticed it, that there's opportunities there. I think the last thing I want, and I've done a few kids events this summer with various different organisations, is there not to be a place for them to go. You sort of inspire them, you have a great time with them, they catch a few fish and they're buzzing, and you think, that's a great first experience, and that's important because that's going to light the spark. But then I want that spark to go and sit on
exactly, yeah. And it's all about it's all about exit strategies and exit routes to me. And I've always been big all through my coaching career. I've always been big in promoting, like making sure there's sustainability and exit strategies for who you're teaching, you know, whether that's accessing into the local day ticket fishery club, you know, you hit the nail on the head. What often happens is that you end up having, say, some open days where people come down and they're like, that was cool. That was really good. But you need to have that continued program to allow the youngsters to continue and engage and learn with inside angling, in my mind. It doesn't even have to be juniors. It could be adults that are coming into sport. But so if you run an open day using volunteers, one of our Get Fishing Award programs, right? They come down and maybe say you've got 3 of them during the summer holidays. So say during Easter. They come down in springtime and they do their bronze, their silver and their gold Get Fishing Awards. It's awesome. And they're like absolutely buzzing. They got a certificate. My daughter's got one on her wall. She absolutely, you know, gets them well hyped up. They've got this wicked certificate and stuff. It's then having that structure within inside the club whereby there's that facility for them to sign up to a continued program whereby I could drop my daughter off and know she's in safe hands with a licensed and qualified coach to be able to continue to do that activity without me needing to be there and to hold her hand the whole time. Does that make sense? Of course. Because I think that is the bit that was missing. Because you can't rely on, in my mind, you can't rely on volunteers to do that twice a week, every Saturday morning, every Sunday morning. It's too much. That's where you professional coaches need to come in. And we need to be linking our professional coaches with clubs to allow the clubs to actually identify the new blood that's coming through, but then put these sessions in place with coaches. And it happens in every sport. If you look at my basketball team that I play for, we've got teams ranging from, I think it's like the under 8s, the under 10s, the under 12s, the under 14s, the under 16s. They all meet on certain nights. They've all got a licensed basketball coach that's taking that session and training them, and they stay at the club all the way through. They play senior level, most of them. A lot of them go off to university. When they come back from university, the way that they make an income is they're either refereeing at our games or and then they join our coaching pool.
Back into the
and they become coaches, you see? So I think that, and you know, I haven't got any magic answers. I don't know how we can actually get the catalyst and the drive to start establishing this, but I think that, you know, we really need people to come forward and take on board that a licensed level 2 coach is the best practice, is the standard that you need to be at to actually give you your safeguarding and your qualifications. And then what we're looking to do is, through the support of people like myself, your regional development officers, it's like linking you in with the clubs and the people and actually giving you the support to go and find the funding to actually allow these organisations to set up. We've got some really cool things at the Angling Trust. We've got some amazing projects that licensed coaches can link into, such as the Real Education Program, which is where you go into schools, junior schools, and you deliver sessions within inside the actual school environment to get people engaged into fishing. So using science, art, practical skills to actually like get them first thinking about fishing. So we've got a Real Education Program, the Cast Awards, which is 6-stage process that as a coach you can deliver. So you could run those Wednesday evening sessions and put people through their entry, their level 1, their level 2, their level 3, all the way up to level 6. We've got that package and program there for people to go and deliver.
But again, I think the most meaningful thing you said is, again, a lot of that system is subjected to the club and what the club wants to do in terms of its future. They might not want to invest in juniors. I've definitely seen that where there's been some anti-junior stuff. And again, that's down to the club and however they want to see that. And money, simple as that. People, as you say, volunteering, people give up an awful amount of time to do that, and it's brilliant, but they're not going to do that indefinitely. They can't.
No, they're not. But this is where I think that when I said to you about professional coaches coming in, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't get paid for your time as a professional. If you're there as a level 2 coach and you're coming in and you're running a Saturday afternoon session for like 12 to 16-year-olds, and you've got another coach there, another volunteer there, and you've got a group of people that are coming down and you're taking duty care over them, the parents expect to pay money for that. I expect to go and pay money to go and take my daughter to a tennis coach, a golf coach.
It's a change of culture, isn't it? You see it at the top end. You're assistant manager to England, and our boys don't exactly get. I mean, they do now thanks to Stu Lawson and Outlaw, but
it's changing.
Historically, mate, they haven't had access to a lot of funding. They've had to fund that all themselves.
Yeah, and I think that this is where we need to have that. There needs to be a change in the mindset. I think of what we do with volunteers and angling is absolutely amazing. Like it blew me away when I started in this post. Actually, the goodwill of anglers, it's fantastic. It's just having that sustained route and keeping people in the club. And I feel that we need to sort of like embrace the actual coaching and the organised sport now, because the world has changed. When I was younger, I'm 42 now. When I was younger, I used to get on a bike and cycle in the summer holidays down to Southampton Common. Right. And when I got down to Southampton Common Lake, there used to be probably about 60 kids around that lake. Yeah. There used to be some adults around there. There's a lovely like community, I call it, whereby you knew you were safe. You weren't signed onto it, but there was loads of people fishing there, if you know what I mean. But if anything did happen, you knew the adults would step forward and sort of like, have your back type thing. Yeah. And some brilliant anglers have come from Southampton Common Lake. When I look back at the kids that I was fishing with, a lot of them are still in the industry and stuff. But times have changed. You go down, we were cycling down there ourselves. Our parents weren't with us. Yeah. We were all little kids around that lake. I went down to Southampton Common the summer holidays. There was 2 families and a couple of guys fishing there around the whole lake. Yeah. It had the complete different vibe to it. Yeah, it's not the way people do things. The way that people get into stuff now is on their phones. They book into have-a-go sessions on Eventbrite. Yeah. They see sort of like, there's, my missus does it all the time. What we're going to do this weekend? I'll have a little look on this site. Oh, look, there's lambing at the farm. Should we go down and have a little look at lambing or something? Or there's a trampolining session you can book onto. Or you see what I mean? I get that. Everything is, it's now, that's how people are going and accessing into sport and activity. So I know you play a lot of tennis. So it might be that the tennis club have an open day. You'll go down there and you'll be able to take the kids down. You'll supervise your kid whilst they knock the tennis ball around. They get seen around the club. They might have a few of these open days, but ultimately, like when I was younger, I played short tennis, but I'd be dropped off to a short tennis session with a coach at the tennis club at the age of 8, 10 or whatever it was. My mum would pick me up 2 hours later, and then she'd go off and do the shopping. I remember she used to go down Asda and go do the shopping and then come back with the bags in the back of the estate car, that was the infrastructure that was in place. I think that with inside angling, personally, I think that we need to really focus on trying to get that infrastructure, to get the youngsters in. I'm talking about the youngsters here, is to get that infrastructure in place. And I think the only way that we can do that, we as the trust have got the tools there that people need. We've got the course content is there, the cast awards. We've even got the educational courses that you can go into schools and deliver, which give school credits. So you can put on a full suite of sessions that will give you credits for the pupils inside their curriculum. It's all there as a licensed coach. I think we need the clubs really embracing getting people into the sport, because that's got to be the hub of what we do. Having an open day once a year is great for the community to have a go at fishing, and to maybe you might get some people in, but to actually follow suit of every other sport that's out there and have some kind of program in place to actually allow that progression to continue, that exit strategy is really important, And
it'll happen, mate. Boys, you've done a cracking
That's
job.
what I'm trying to do. Yeah, that's it.
Mate, you'll be sound.
Honestly, I couldn't wish for a better role with inside the trust of what I do.
Bit of you, innit?
It's right a bit of me, yeah. And
England stuff? How'd you get started in that? Assistant? How many years you done?
Since 2015. Jeez, yeah, since 2015. So we obviously had COVID chucked in there. I think when we go out next week, this is going to be the 10th campaign that I do. And it was 2015. So Rob came into post. He got announced as the England manager. Now, I knew Rob through the BCACs and competing in the BCACs. And with my background of doing sort of like team and personal development work, I just phoned Rob up and congratulated him. I said to him, look, Rob, if you ever need any help doing any sort of like, you're bringing the team together, if you want me to come up and do some team building activities or something like that with the team, a bit of icebreakers, bit of team bonding stuff, just give me a shout. I'm more than happy to get involved and come along. He's like, thanks so much, Graham. We're just sort of like putting the team together and trying to piece things out at the moment, but I'll bear that in mind. Thank you for the kind offer. And then I sat at the dinner table. I just moved down to Brighton at the time. And the phone rang. It was Rob. And Rob said, I've had a chat with the rest of the guys. And he said, I've been giving it some thought as well. And he said, I'd like you to come on board as my assistant. And I was like, oh, that's wonderful, Rob. I was like, what does that mean? Expecting that he'd want me to, I don't know, as assistant, like book a few ferries or something like that. And, that sort of thing. He said, well, you'll be coming out as my right-hand man. So you'll be coming out to the World Championships. We'll be managing it together. We'll be managing the boys. Looking at the tactics, looking at the logistics. And, I was like, wow, that's what a privilege. It still makes me extremely proud, and I can visualize where I was and how I felt, when he asked me that. It was amazing. So that's how it came about. Again, I just sort of put myself forward in a positive way and sort of presented myself, and doors opened, and
Hey,
the rest
is
is
a few medals, mate.
Well, the rest is history. Yeah, that was 2015. So since then we've had 2 golds, we've had a bronze. It's been an amazing journey. Amazing journey. It really has.
What's the realities of dealing with those anglers in that environment? What is it that, I don't know.
I think the thing is, it's not so much dealing with the anglers. The anglers themselves are obviously cream of the crop. They're absolutely mustard. The difference is where you're fishing. The venues are different than what we fish in the UK. Yeah. It's having people open their mind up to a different style of fishing, a different approach possibly that will suit that venue. It's not being blinkered into thinking that the way we fish at Linear or wherever we do in the UK is the way that's going to do it. You need to be open-minded. You need to come into these competitions and actually be a team, be prepared to learn, be prepared to think outside the box and adapt. I think the anglers that are in the team are amazing at doing that, and they understand it. They really do understand it. They're trying to piece it all together. They're not coming in there with egos or like, this is what we're going to smash it up, this is how we do it, sort of thing. And I think that's what we've brought as a management, is a bit of fresh thinking with regards to like being open-minded. Rob is very worldly with his fishing. He's traveled all over the place. He's seen a lot of different styles. He's seen some very good anglers all around the world. He's obviously done the diving. He's visited a lot of venues. So he brings that sort of like tactical knowledge to the team. And also he brings a lot of respect. The guys respect him a lot, which is very important. And then I support him. I feed in information that I get. They used to call me Pie Chart because I basically go around and Stato, yeah, that's it.
Are
yeah.
you? I thought you'd be like the mental health anchor.
No, mate. No, I basically go around and I'm quite good at seeing things and figuring things out, as is Rob. But if there's patterns coming through of like, okay, these guys are pushing forward at certain times of the day, or these guys are using a certain tactic, and that's, or just noticing that someone's pulling a crafty and, like they shouldn't be casting over there. Like, I'm quite good at picking up on that sort of stuff, and then feeding it back into the team. And so me and Rob as a management partnership of, we've reached the absolute pinnacle of everything we can do. We're ranked world number 1. We're defending champions. We won last year over in Hungary. And that one there is very interesting. With Hungary, I was so confident going over there, Hassan.
You said this.
That we were going to come back with a gold. I just had that feeling.
Why was it? The venue or just that feeling again?
So we fished, it was everything. We fished that venue back in 2000, I think it was 2017, I think we were there. And we almost got it right. We had the right bait, but we didn't quite use it at the right time, and we sort of like, it almost came together, but it didn't. We had a very good last half of the match. We sort of like messed it up in the first half of the match.
I remember this. Yeah.
So we've changed tactics and stuff, and then we actually outperformed all other nations. So in my mind, that gave us the confidence that when we get it right, we can outperform these guys. We can outfish these guys. And I still stand by that. When we get it right, England, our team can outfish any other nation skill wise. It's getting those tactics right. It's getting that mindset right. It's getting that preparation right. It's all those little 1% that you need to get right that's going to make a difference at the end. All those 0.5%, to sort of like maximize your efficiency whilst you're in the peg. But with Hungary, we didn't even go out there and practice. We knew the venue from 2017. We just had a team that was confident on our approach and the tactics that we were going to use, that was the way that we were going to fish, that we were going to stick to that. That was the way you were going to win the match over there. That's the tactics that we needed to do. We were confident that people weren't going to deviate from the plan. Not do anything stupid, not blow the swim up or sort of like do something that was, that was completely out of sync with what our plans and tactics were. And yeah, I just had that feeling like going over there. I was like, we've got this. I know it sounds stupid, right? But at the opening ceremony, they had all these dancers on and the people giving the giving the talks and stuff at opening the ceremony. And at the end of it, I actually went down off the stands. I walked over to the podium, put my hand on the top step, and I was like, I'll be standing on you on Saturday. That's how confident I was. I just knew I was going to be on that top step with the team on Saturday. And everything came together perfectly. I have never, in all of my fishing, seen fishing done so perfectly as what we did in Hungary last year. And that's not me trying to blow the trumpet of the team or anything like that. Like, honestly, it was perfect. It was the perfect performance. You see it in other sports whereby someone will like be playing golf and just win by a clear margin, and you're just like, wow, that was out of the park. It was ridiculous. Everything that they did, every club choice, every stroke was just perfect. That's what it felt like in Hungary last year, and that's what you need to win a World Championships. Everything, just watching it come together, the way that they're baiting, the way that the tactics, the casting, the accuracy, the way that they were just putting everything together and just performing was exceptional. It really, really was. Very, very proud of that team. Very proud of that team of what they did last year for their country. It's not easy stepping into those pegs. It's a long duration.
Yeah,
you're in there. Is hardly any sleep and stuff. Lots of preparation off of it beforehand, and everything came together. People's heads were in the right spaces. We got a good couple of rest days before the competition as well, so people went in there with the right mindset, which I think is really important for the team. You can't be going in there just rushing from the airport, going straight into a peg and just trying to perform on no sleep and stuff. You need to be able to be rested and be sort of like, prepared to go and perform. But yeah, Hungary was, exceptional. And that allowed us to become world number ones. So,
hardest moment through your time there?
Hardest moment.
Or lowest, however you want to deem it?
Lowest. France, the last time, was a tricky one to take, to be honest, because we got our tactics all wrong.
Where'd you finish in France?
I think we're down about 11th.
Yeah,
I think
it was
low,
wasn't it?
It was quite.
I say low, but you know.
Yeah, no, I think it was around about 11th or something like that. We went over there, and the reason I say that, it wasn't anything that like the anglers did like mega wrong or anything, but I think we went in there too cocky.
Yeah,
it's a difficult one when you go and practice on a venue that's quite easy. It's actually the hardest venue to go and practice on, because most things that you do when you practice catch fish, right? And you've got nothing to judge it against, which give the home nation a real big advantage because they fish matches on these venues. So they know how they're going to perform in match situations. Yeah. So I think we went over there. We were a little bit of ahead of ourselves with our sort of like thinking that we've smashed it out of the park with our tactic wise. And I think we just got it wrong. Do you know what I mean? We just got it wrong. And coming off the back of that was straight after Spain, I think it was. So we were like reigning champions there, and then we went over to France. And for that to happen, that felt a bit. That was a hard one to take, that one there. But learned from it really well, and we came back stronger. Came back much stronger off the back of that one. And I think that was a very important lesson for us to learn, really. Yeah, so I think there's not really been many low moments, do you know what I mean, with Inside England. It's all been
a belting period, haven't you?
Yeah, we've had a belting period,
but you've been just as pivotal in that as the anglers, mate. I think there's a lot that goes on, and I've had Ryan and Wayne here, I've had various others, I've had Robin that have all said the similar thing, that all that stuff, they obviously do the fishing, they produce, they have to perform, but there's also a hell of a lot that contributes towards any successful team, let alone
exactly. And like once you get up to that standard there, like the skill level of the anglers all around the world that come there, they're cream of the crop, they're absolute mustard, like they're the best there are in the world, obviously. The differences are those little 1%. And I think that having a good management team behind you, having a solid management team behind you, which Rob has led, and I've been his like right hand man the whole time. I think that has been real pivotal. And I was chatting to Rob actually the other day about this, and he said, look, G, he said, you know, me and you and Neil actually, because Neil's been there right from the start as an angler. He said, but as management, we've been there. Like people say that this team has been the greatest carp angling team that England's ever had, but the team has actually changed quite a lot when you look at the actual anglers that are inside it now and that have come and gone, or that, you know, it's been changing, evolving. The main engines of the machine has been Rob and me, you know, inside there. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. Like, give a little bit of a, you know, exclusive, because the team don't even know this yet. The only person that knows at the moment is Rob. But this will be my last campaign with Carp Team England. So after this, I've actually made a decision to step down from the management levels and to pass the reins over.
Why?
I think the time's right, Hassan. I think the time's right. And
I thought you were going to say I'm going to fish in it.
Well, maybe the vets. Maybe the vets. Do you know what I mean? Maybe the vets would be. I'm actually a sub this time. It'd be nice to get in there and catch a fish, wouldn't it? But we'll see. But no, I think the time's right. When Rob went on and he did a live a couple of days ago, and it's been playing in my mind a little bit. Like, we're ranked number 1 in the world. There's no, we can't go any higher. You know, we're ranked number 1 in the world. And when Rob announced that he was stepping up, he's going upstairs, as it were, into like head of performance across the whole of the competitions and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, it just feels, the management team has been me and Rob, yeah, and it's worked perfectly. And it just feels like the right time to pass the baton over to another set of managers, another manager. I know Neil's stepping up this year, like he's part of the management team. I'm still named on the management team. I'm going over there in a managerial role with Neil. But when I sat back and reflected on it, I was like, you know what, with my young family, with what we've done in the past, you know, with all the successes we've had, I was like, this is a good time. You know, this is a good time to let someone else have the baton, let someone else take this forward. I honestly feel that what me and Rob have done from a managerial point of view with Inside Angling, we've sort of, we've paved the way a little bit for like the way that it can be done with inside management, having 2 managers there that complement each other and actually stay as a main core of the team. And I feel that, yeah, I feel very proud. You know, I'm really proud of what we've done. I
wouldn't want to be following your lead, mate. I wouldn't want to be the next tournament.
Well, I think if that's the other thing as well, I think it'd be nice to hand it over fresh. I feel that if I do stay, it kind of is always going to be linked to that era. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, it's sort of, it's always going to be, and you know, like if it is Neil that steps up as the formal manager next year, you know, and there'll be a process whereby the Angling Trust, who oversee all the competitions, will put forward a sort of like a 3-year, you know, you'll sign up to a 3-year tenure as manager. At the moment, sort of like me and Neil going into this one, managing it together, this one here. So if Neil does take on a 3-year tenure or something of the competition, of the team, I think that it's only fair to like give him a clean slate.
Yeah, fair do.
Yeah, you know, like I think like a clean slate. People have said to me, do I want to step up into that managerial role? And I've given it lots of thought. I think that, again, it wouldn't be, I'd always be looking back to the days of me and Rob doing it and us as that managerial team. And I think that personally, the time's right for me, as I say, with 2 young kids and stuff and busy work life, you know, I've got the rod company, I've got Angling Trust stuff, I've got family, I've got other hobbies like basketball that I do. I just feel now it's the time's right, you know. And I spoke to Rob about this. I say I haven't even spoke to any of the team about it yet, so I'll be telling them when we go over there. But yeah, the time's right, you know. Like I'm happy to draw a line under my Team England stuff. I'm not saying I won't ever pull a jersey on again for a Team England, you know. Like, who knows? Rob's talking about the vet stuff being over 50s. You know, I'd like to get back into my competition myself, fishing myself. Who knows? Maybe when I'm 50, I'll be pushing for that team. Maybe I'll be managing that team. You know, like there's the under-22s that are coming up as well that I know Rob's really passionate about as well. It may be that I take a role with inside the under-22s with Rob or under Rob's guidance or just on my own. I don't know, but I think that for the seniors and the men's team, it's the right time for me to step away from that.
Fair days. If it's the right, it's right. It's in your own head. But also, I hope you finished up with another gold, mate.
Well, what I'm going for, I'm going to tell the boys, right? Because we've done, this will be my 10th campaign and I've had 4 medals. So I'm like, look, I want 10 and 5. I want a 50% record. Do you know what I mean? So
when you see those Netflix documentaries of like The Last Dance, and they always go out on a.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Can you imagine
hit that 3-pointer on the buzzer? Do you know what I mean? Go on a fairy tale. That'd be the one. You know, that would be the one. I think what a nice that'd be to hold on to that number one spot and to like.
It's going to happen.
Yeah, I think I'm
confident. Hungry confident?
No. In all honesty, I'm not hungry confident. The reason for that is the venue. The venue is this is gonna be airing after the thing, so people will know anyway. But when we went and practiced, there's certain areas of the venue that's very snaggy, like the problematic snaggy. Now, you can have the best anglers in the world. You can have like all your tactics all dialed in, but if you go into that drawer and you pull out a shitter of a peg that's got a load of snags in front of you, and there's other pegs in the section that don't have them, I think that'll be a real problem for this competition. Now, skill-wise, yes. Tactic-wise, I think we've got it dialed in. I think our tactics for this year, our baiting strategies and our tactics are good enough to get us up there.
Okay.
However, the problem is with this venue is that when you practice on it, there's a lot of fish inside it.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's that situation whereby there's always an unknown there of like when everyone's putting their bait out and you've got 32 nations with 3 pairs, you know, each. So you've got 3 sections of 32.
How does it react?
Or they're in splits. How do the fish react when you've got all that bait in, all that choice? Yeah, that's going to be the key. I'm confident. Tactic wise, ability wise, we're up there, and we've got a good chance of a podium on this one.
Good draw we need.
Good draw. I think draw is going to be key. The way that they've done it as well. So because there's 32 nations, they've done it in split sections. So you've got A section, B section, C section. They've split it. So you've got A1, A2, B1, B2. So your performance inside that split section. So if you win your split section, you'll take 1 point. So your performance inside the split section is going to be key. But you could have it in the draw that you're not fishing against, say, France in your split section because they've drawn the other split section. So you can't take points off of France by beating them because they're competing against other nations in their other section. So again, when it comes to a draw, like if you've got the big players, you know, the ones that are going to be up there at the top, we can't influence them through our split. And also where it's split sections and the way they've put the sections and the way they've put them around the lake on the map, it's quite a few end pegs. And there's quite a few, like when I look at it, there's quite a few pegs that I'm like, that looks king. Do you know what I mean? Like that's, if you could get into those ones there, that'd be good. So I think coming down to draw, I think that's going to be key. And then I think also the people that we've got either side of us as well. And how, also what's going to be key is how quick the guys can adapt to those pegs. Because again, where it's not our home venue, you don't know where those snags are. You don't know where those drop-offs are.
No.
Yeah, so other nations will, you know, the French obviously will know exactly where they've seen it all drain down and stuff. They know exactly where the underwater forests are, and, you know, certain pegs you want to fish, like, you know, just 15 wraps is the furthest you can go before you go into an old orchard or something, you know. It's that type of venue. Whereas if you don't have that knowledge, you go into a peg, you could spend the first 6 hours, like, every time you get a run, you're pulling it in and it's doing you, you know.
I'm confident, mate. I think we've won it already. We've not even done it.
I think it's going to come down. This is my prediction on this. It's going to come down to an absolute firefight. This one, right down to the wire, and we're going to do it right literally on the whistle with this one. And I think that it's going to be an absolute tear up. This one here, like you want. People out there that listen, it would already have happened, but I've got my anticipation is this will be one of the most exciting world championships to follow, because I think it's going to be up. The lead is going to be changing left, right, and centre. I think that as those shoals of fish move and our boys start firing up, it's going to be like, oh my God, like look what these boys have done. Like, you know, look what, you know, the Carls have done. Look what Mark and Kev have done. Look what Wayne and Ryan have done. And you're going to be like, whoa. And then, you know, the shoals of fish could move off slightly and another nation come through. I think it's going to be so exciting, mate. It's not going to be like Serbia where like you're trying to catch 1 or 2 fish to make a difference in the
busy,
thing,
isn't it?
It's going to be like Drayton, mate. It's going to be absolute.
I think we'll absolutely blitz it from the start.
Wow.
Of it, mate. I hope so. I hope it's an absolute cushy one. No, but either way, mate, I hope for your sake. Well, I'm sure it will. It will be a nice conclusion to a real ridiculous spell of management, mate, with an incredible team, which you've been part of.
Yeah, and these boys, like I think I've just mentioned it, but these boys are the best in the world that we've got. Yeah, they are. Honestly, people don't get in this country to actually watch what these boys are doing out there on the world stage, because they're different venues. It's a different setup. It's not like the BCACs are great to watch and stuff, but it's like BCACs on steroids. The way I sort of compare it is it's a bit like going from a go-karting down your local go-karting track and then entering Formula One. Yeah. It's like that jump on scale. It's ludicrous. And we know our boys are good because you see them in the BC, you see them on their venues slaying it and stuff like that. When you see the boys and they're in their international pegs and the way that they fish those pegs and just how good they are, it's next level. It's amazing. It really is. I wish that we could get it televised. I wish that we could get it actually shown to the whole of, all these listeners that are out there of actually what happens out there. Rob does the Facebook Lives and stuff, which are great to follow. But when you're there and you're watching it, it is next level stuff.
Netflix documentary, mate.
Exactly. That would be it, wouldn't it?
The one, wouldn't it?
That'd be the one, wouldn't it? Imagine that.
I don't know if there's a market for it, but yeah, you'd have to. Go on, the boys. Let's get the win.
Come on, England.
By now, hopefully, we'd have a gold. Future for you. I know that we reference family, but your little daughter's keen on a bit of fishing as well.
Amber is well keen on some fishing. Yeah, we did the mixed pairs this year, the BCAC's mixed pairs.
Mate. How old is she?
6. No, 7 now. She was 6 when she fished. She's just turned 7. She loves it. Absolutely loves it. She's got a little like scope set up. She's got a 1 foot. She's got a 6 foot 1 pound scope. A little on my first bait runner. It's like a little Shimano 3500. She's got that. She's only tiny, but yeah, she can cast out. She has a little method feeder. Puts a little boilies on. Casts out. And yeah, we did the mixed pairs with her this summer. It was one of the highlights of my fishing career. I thought, which woman do I want to go and fish the mixed pairs with? And I thought, actually, top of my list is my daughter. So I entered with a 6-year-old, and she pulled the peg. It wasn't the best peg in the world, but yeah, we managed to come 3rd overall, win the section. I think she caught the second biggest fish, a 24.10 I think it was, all by herself. It was amazing, Hassan. But yeah, she loves it. She loves her fishing. So future for me when it comes to fishing is going to be doing a bit more with my daughter, getting back into a bit of competition fishing, whereby whether that's inside the BCACs, I've seen that they've just put their venue list out, so I think I might have a little crack at that again, or going over. I've got a good friend in Romania. I want to go and fish some matches with him. And just going over with the South Coast Rods boys and going and doing some Euro trips, man. I love exploring. I love adventure. I don't like sitting still or being stagnant, Hassan. And I think that, yeah, just getting that buzz about going out and exploring again. I think I'm really keen to do that and just doing something new. So yeah, that's going to be the future. Yeah, getting into that.
Great, mate. It's wicked. I've loved the diversity and everything. Thank you so much for coming in, mate. There's so much in there, and I hope that obviously we get to see or get you back in at a later date and see exactly where things have taken in terms of your own fishing, because there's time now for a bit maybe more focused on yourself rather than maybe giving a lot of your efforts to sort of the Team England stuff as well. But we'll see what the future pans out for you, mate.
Yeah, definitely. And I think when we talk about the future as well, I'm really keen to see fishing develop, and like I said about the coaching and stuff, and like my role at the AT. I'd love to see that really help drive that forward. You can hear it in my voice, man. It's a passion of mine, mate. I just want to see more people fishing. I want to see more people out there. I want other people to have the opportunity in the future to be sitting on sofas like this doing podcasts about fishing, because it's what we need. And I think that, get more people out there, more kids into fishing, and just keep doing that. I think I've really focused my time on that. And obviously selling a few fishing rods as well.
Yeah, too right, mate. Before you go, you got quick fire questions, mate.
Oh, go on and hit me.
You'll be all right with these, mate. Absolutely.
You reckon? You told me there was an absolute shocker.
Absolute barbed wire hurdle. But that's near the end, so don't worry. 3 celebrities you'd take fishing, past or present.
Oh, 3. So I'd take them fishing, would I? Yeah. David Attenborough, definitely. Boy. Absolute legend. I think Ray Mears would be a good one as well. I'd
love it.
I'd love to see what you could muster up. Do you know what I mean? Like get a nice little barbecue going out of some twigs or something like that.
Release going on there, mate.
No, exactly. No, actually, it might not be too good for the old.
Attenborough
Carp
and Mears
stocks.
might clash, mate. There.
Do you reckon? Do you reckon we could have a little bit of conflict?
Spotted, whatever. Mears has got it on a barbecue.
And then who else? Who else? I think it would have to be like one of the fishing greats, wouldn't it? I think I think maybe Rod. I think maybe I think if I could I had the opportunity of fishing with him a charity event, and he's an absolute character, or was a character, bless him. And I think Rod. Just put Rod Hutchinson in there. Nice. I think Rod and David Attenborough. I can imagine them having a good old conversation as well.
History carp you wish you caught?
History carp I wish I'd caught. Nutsy Mirror.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I had the opportunity to. It was in Southampton. I had the opportunity
to. Say, it's local, isn't it?
It was on my doorstep, and I missed the opportunity on it. And I think that, looking back, that fish at over 50 at the time was a very, very big fish, beautiful fish as well. So I think, that would have been one, Nutsy.
One angler to catch a carp to save your life?
Dan Gale.
Oh, straight in.
Dan Gale, he's a friend of mine. He used to be a lecturer at Sparshot College. He's like a good mate of mine, but Dan Gale without fact. To catch a fish to save my life. We're not talking a carp, we're talking a fish. You can catch anything that swims. So I'm going Mr. Gale.
Fair dues. Drum and bass or country and western?
Drum and bass.
Oh my days. Never coach again, or never go angling again for yourself. Never fish again.
Yeah, I think I'd have to choose the fishing over the coaching, because I think if I didn't ever just get to fish, then I wouldn't, be. I
thought that's a political way out of that. You've done well. Good. Yeah. Carp fishing hell. What is it?
Carp fishing hell. Having to book swims before you turn up. I don't like that. That doesn't allow me the freedom to fish. That's
the one.
That's the one. Yeah.
Best advice you've ever been given?
Go and be yourself. I think.
Nice.
I remember being given that. Just go and be yourself. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Hardest man in Carp Team England.
Hardest.
Pound for pound.
Well, I reckon Ryan Need.
Really? He's a big un though, isn't he?
Right.
Pound for pound.
Pound for pound. Oh, yeah.
I think that's a very tough question.
No, I'm still going to go Needy. I wouldn't like to go down an alleyway and see him now. I know he's a big guy. He's got a few pounds about him, but
quite slow, or is he quite fast?
No, I think he's quite quick as well.
Is he?
I think he's it'd be Needy.
Yeah, you won't want to get hit by Needy.
Love
you, Ryan.
I think he'd be able to fold me up and put me in his pocket, to be honest with you, mate.
What about me?
He's a gentle giant. Wow, yeah, he's chewing. You like chewing gum, mate.
Exactly. Final question. Night out on the bank or a night in with the missus, mate? Which one are you taking?
Oh, night out on the bank.
Yeah, she ain't watching this, is she?
No, I don't know.
Well covered. She won't go this far anyway. I'm joking. Thank you guys for watching and listening. I'll be back soon with another Nash Off the Hook podcast from that lovely man, and hopefully another gold medal in his collection. Massive thank you for coming in, mate.
Been a pleasure, man. Anytime.